Chapter 690. Let Su Qing come thinking of her. Gu Yundong immediately asked Tong Shui Tao to turn her horse around. Gu Yundong did not know many people, but there were a few who left a good impression on her. One of them was Su Chongshen's sister, Su Qing. The first time they met, she was actually more satisfied with Su Qing's personality than she was with Su Chongshen. It was just that the shop did not recruit female workers. Otherwise, it would be easier for Su Qing to attract customers with her straightforward personality. Moreover, Su Qing was not bad-looking either. She had a very likable appearance. Coincidentally, her way home was in the same direction as her way to the Su family. It was good to take this opportunity to ask Su Qing for her opinion. If the girl was unwilling, she could only find someone else. It was still early when Gu Yundong arrived at the Su residence. Su Chongshen had yet to get off work and return home. The carriage stopped outside the alley as usual. She and Tong Shui Tao walked in. It was unlike the last time she came. There were not many people at the entrance of the Su family's house. Even if the neighbors passed by his house, they seemed to have to avoid him. However, when she arrived at the Su family today, she could still see many people looking at the Su family's courtyard door. She did not know what they were looking at. When Gu Yundong came over, their gazes fell on her. Gu Yundong was already used to such gazes. She only asked Tong Shui Tao to knock on the door. She stood outside the door and waited. With a glance, she saw Madame Sun again. When Madame Sun met her gaze, she immediately shrank her neck. She no longer had the arrogance and mockery Gu Yundong had seen the first time. She hurriedly entered her house and only quietly opened the door a crack to look out. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Mother Su happened to hear the commotion and came to open the door. When she saw her, she was stunned for a moment and quickly moved aside to invite her in. "Why is Boss Gu here?" She closed the door as she invited her in. After taking a few steps, she felt uneasy and asked, "Did something happen to Chongshen?" Gu Yundong shook her head with a smile. "No, he's fine. I came here today for something else. Is Su Qing here? I'm looking for her." "Yes, yes, yes." Mother Su quickly nodded and shouted, little Qing, come out quickly. Boss Gu is here. She's looking for you." Su Qing ran out of the kitchen in a hurry. She was surprised to see Gu Yundong. "Boss Gu is looking for me? Okay." Gu Yundong entered the central room and did not beat around the bush. She told Su Qing that she wanted to open a new shop. Moreover, this shop specialized in entertaining ladies, so she needed a female shop assistant. She asked her if Su Qing wanted to try. The salary was a little less than Su Chongshen's. It was 2 taels of silver a month for now. Of course, this was only temporary. If the business in the shop was good, the salary would definitely increase. Su Qing was stunned. Her mother also stood rooted to the ground in shock, unable to recover for a long time. What did Boss Gu just say? Not only did Boss Gu hire her son as a shop assistant, but she also wanted to hire her daughter as a female shop assistant? The salary was not low. If little Qing went too, the sibling's salary would be 5 taels. Moreover, Boss Gu was very generous. 2 days ago, on the first day of business at Gus, she actually gave him a red packet of 2 taels of silver. Su Qing felt her throat go dry. After a while, she asked uncertainly, "Boss Gu, are you really looking for me to be a shop assistant?" "Are you looking for me, Su Qing?" Gu Yundong was amused by her. "I'm looking for you, of course. Is there a second Su Qing here?" "Why? Don't you want to go?" "Yes, I do. Since you want to go, I have a few more questions to tell you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 691. Exalted. Su Qing immediately swallowed her saliva. She felt that the next step was the main point. Gu Yundong's expression became more serious. "I won't hide it from you. This shop doesn't belong to me alone. I opened it with 2 other people. One of them is Madame Dai's wife, and the other is the eldest daughter of the Nie family." Mother Su was speechless. Su Qing. Madame Dai? Eldest Miss Nie? They felt that there was something wrong with their ears. Although they had long heard from Su Chongshen that Madame Dai and Miss Nie had visited to celebrate the opening of Gus, They had never thought that these two people would actually cooperate with Boss Gu to open a shop. How capable was this Boss Gu? You didn't hear wrongly. It's indeed them, Gu Yundong said. So, you're not the only one working in the shop. There are also people hired by Madame Dai and Miss Nye. And you're the only one I have. Su Qing's expression instantly turned solemn, as if she felt a huge responsibility. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw this. There's no need to be so nervous. I'm telling you this to make you fully aware of the situation. Mr. Dai and Miss Nye are easy to get along with. They won't make things difficult for you, but I don't know the people under them. I don't know their attitudes either. You have to adjust your relationship with them. But I hope you understand that even if they're Madame Dai and Miss Nye's people, you are not inferior to them. There's no need to curry favor and bow down to them, but you have to grasp a balance. If they bully you, you don't have to hold it in. You have to counterattack when it's time, understand? I don't want my people to be cowards. Su Qing thought about it and could roughly understand what Boss Gu meant. Therefore, after a while, she nodded and said, I understand. I represent you. If I'm too strong-willed, it'll make things difficult for you, but if I'm too cowardly, it'll make others look down on you. Miss, don't worry. I won't be bullied, but I won't be inflexible either. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. This girl was a perceptive person. Actually, in the beginning, she wanted to look for Lan Huar because she was smart. Perhaps she was still a little girl who lived in the countryside and did not have enough knowledge, but as long as she was nurtured well, she would have no problem at all. But now that she saw Su Qing like this, she felt that perhaps she was more suitable. Since you understand your situation, are you still willing to be this assistant? Su Qing nodded vigorously. I'm willing. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I won't let you down. Gu Yundong stood up. All right, since you're willing, you can come over tomorrow. Stay by my side for a few days. It'll teach you some communication skills. Gu Yundong felt that she had to let Su Qing understand her personality and her position so that she could get along better with Madame Dai and the rest. Su Qing was very happy and nodded repeatedly. Yes. Seeing that it was getting late, Gu Yundong gave her a few more instructions before turning to leave. Su Qing sent them all the way to the door and watched them disappear into the alley. Then, she turned around in a daze and planned to close the courtyard door. However, the neighbors who had been waiting outside immediately rushed forward and asked, Hey, Su Qing, who is that girl? What is she doing at your house? Before Su Qing could answer, Mother Su had already arrived. Looking at these neighbors who were smiling ingratiatingly, she felt a little proud. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 692. Madame Dai is speechless. That's the owner of the shop where Changshun works. She came to look for our little Qing and gave her a job. After Mother Su finished speaking, before they could react, she slammed the courtyard door shut. Everyone else was stunned. What? Not only did this boss find Su Changshun to be a shop assistant in such a big shop, but she also gave Su Qing a job? How did the Su family suddenly get so lucky? Wasn't this a little too good? Everyone felt a little emotional for a moment, but they were also more determined to build a good relationship with the Su family. Perhaps in the future, this boss would have more jobs. It would be good to get the Su family to help introduce them. However, they didn't know that Mother Su already had other plans. After closing the courtyard door to block the gazes of those who were watching the commotion, Mother Su pulled Su Qing, who was still in a daze, into the central room. She sat on a chair and said, Little Qing, there's something we need to discuss. What is it? Su Qing finally came back to her senses when she heard her mother's serious voice. Mother Su said, Shall we move? Move. Su Qing was surprised. Yes, I've said it before. When we have money in the future, we'll find a new place to live. Although we don't have much money now, we can rent a courtyard elsewhere. Mother Su had been thinking about this problem for a long time. Besides, your brother's shop is on Dahui Road. The shop you'll go to in the future is on Mingan Road. They're too far from home. Your brother is fine. I'm not worried about him, but I'm worried about you commuting so far every day. We can rent a house near Mingan Road. Although the rent there is a little expensive, we can rent this house out. In addition, You and your brother have a salary every month. It won't be a problem to rent a small courtyard. Su Qing thought about it and felt that it was feasible. However, this matter would have to wait until Su Chongshun returned before they discussed it together. Su Chongshun naturally had no objections. If his shop was too busy and he worked late, he could still stay in the backyard behind the shop. However, Su Qing was different. According to Boss Gu, although her shop had a place for the night watch to rest, it was not suitable to spend the night alone. Still, the next day, Su Qing had to follow Gu Yundong to work. Su Chongshun also had to work, so only Mother Su went to look for a house. Su Qing only told her not to work too hard. There was no hurry. After all, the new shop would not open for a while. There was plenty of time. Then, she put on her new clothes and ran to the Gu family's waiter early in the morning to wait at the door. When Gu Yundong went out, she saw that she seemed to have been waiting for a long time. She was stunned. "Why didn't you knock and come in?" Su Qing smiled in embarrassment. "I just got here too." Gu Yundong did not say anything else and brought her and Tong Shui Tao to the shop on Mingan Road. There were already a few people standing outside the shop. They were Feng Danning and the two carpenters. They had been standing here for a long time. They had circled around the shop previously and roughly knew how big it was, so their faces flashed with excitement. When they saw Gu Yundong, the three of them immediately went up to him. Not long after, Madame Dai and Ye Shuang's carriage stopped at the entrance of the shop. After they came down, Gu Yundong turned around and introduced them to Feng Danning and the other two, as well as Su Qing. Looking at Su Qing, Madame Dai and Ye Shuang were speechless. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 693. Su Qing's conduct. Although they had said that she should at least arrange for one employee, they did not expect Gu Yundong to really only find one person. However, since things had come to this, the two of them could not say anything else. The group first entered the shop to discuss the renovations. Feng Danning and the other two walked 2 rounds inside. After looking at the blueprint that Gu Yundong had given them and the range that needed to be renovated, their 6 eyes could not help but flash with a scorching light. However, he still explained in advance, the entire backyard has to be rebuilt, so it might take a long time. "That doesn't matter," Madame Dai said. "The most important thing is to do the job well. I'd rather spend more time to do it meticulously. The room has to be sturdy, and the materials can't be perfunctory. Madam, don't worry. We will definitely do our best." Madame Dai believed in Gu Yundong's recommendation. Next, it was time to discuss the details. Gu Yundong and Feng Danning had worked together several times, so there were some things that he could understand without her having to explain in detail. He would even suggest some unreasonable points. Therefore, in just half a day, they had already decided on how to renovate this shop. During this period, Su Qing was the one who poured tea and handed over pens and paper. Gu Yundong did not tell her, but she was very self-aware. Not only did she do it in an orderly manner, but she was also exceptionally considerate. After observing her for a day, Gu Yundong was very satisfied. Nye Shuang had a carefree personality and did not pay much attention to it. After all, she was the eldest daughter of the Nye residents and had a maidservant serving her all the time. She was already used to having someone take care of everything for her. However, Madame Dai could see it clearly. Hence, on the way back, she sat in the same carriage as Nye Shuang and could not help but say, although Yundong only found Su Qing, that girl can surpass others by several times. No wonder she can do business so well. Just in terms of hiring people, she makes others feel ashamed. Nye Shuang was at a loss. Seeing this, Madame Dai couldn't help but poke her head. After a while, she told her about Su Qing's performance in the shop today. Nye Shuang was suddenly enlightened. "I see. In that case the person I chose is really too different from Su Qing. I was thinking of bringing her over to show you tomorrow. Now that I hear you say that, I think I have to change people." Nye Shuang's thinking was quite good. If she had to hire someone, she would choose the servants' children. Their indenture was in her hands and they could be trusted. After returning yesterday, her mammy had recommended 2, and so did her maidservant and 2 sisters. Even those with good culinary skills in the kitchen were suitable to work in the kitchen of the shop. She felt that there was no problem. The servants in the residence were used to serving people. Wasn't going to the shop to entertain those madams and young ladies just working in another place? But now that she heard what Madame Dai said, Shuang could not help but think more. Especially with Su Qing as a reference. For example, Su Qing was good-looking, Su Qing was diligent in her work, Su Qing spoke sweetly, Su Qing was not afraid of hardship or fatigue. Shuang immediately had a headache. It was not easy to find someone. Just based on looks alone, she had already eliminated the two people recommended by the mammy yesterday from her mind. Madame Dai frowned slightly. Her head hurt even more badly because she did not only have to hire the waiters and kitchen staff. She was also the one who chose the shopkeeper. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 694. Departure. News. The shopkeeper was different from the shop assistant. She had to be knowledgeable and capable. When she saw those madams and young ladies, she had to be neither servile nor overbearing. In this huge prefectural city, Madam and Madam had conflicts. Young Miss and Young Miss disliked each other a lot. If they happened to meet in the shop, as the shopkeeper, she had to at least have the ability to mediate. At the same time, she had to have management skills, literacy, and etiquette. Most importantly, unlike the male shopkeepers in ordinary shops, there were too few experienced female shopkeepers. At the very least, there was none in the shops under Madame Dai's own name. Sigh, my head hurts. Gu Yundong also knew that the two of them were having a headache. After all, she had deliberately brought Su Qing over today. She more or less understood what the criteria for workers were for Madame Dai and Shuang. It was obvious that they would definitely choose someone close to them. Even Gu Yundong herself would subconsciously choose someone she had a good relationship with. However, although the people close to him were trustworthy, it still depended on whether they were suitable. Gu Yundong had taken a share of this shop. If she wanted to do it, she had to do it well. She believed that Su Qing's trip today would be very effective. Gu Yundong sent Su Qing to the entrance of her alley before bringing Tong Shui Tao home. When she entered, Shao Qingyuan happened to be at home. At this moment, he was sitting in the central room and standing in front of Zhu, as if he was talking to him. When Gu Yundong approached, Zhu finished speaking. However, Shao Qingyuan frowned slightly. Gu Yundong was puzzled. What's wrong? What happened? When Shao Qingyuan saw her, his expression instantly improved. He only said, "There's something going on at the manor. I'm afraid I'll have to go over tomorrow and will only be back in a few days." Manor. Gu Yundong remembered that Shao Qingyuan had bought a manor not far from the Xuanhe prefecture. Although it was not very big, the title deed was given to her. It seemed that ever since Shao Qingyuan bought this manor, he had never gone there again. What happened? Is it very troublesome? Shao Qingyuan shook his head. It's not troublesome. It's just that there are some things that I need to confirm personally. I originally wanted to bring you along to take a look when you're done here. In any case, it's not far from the Xuanhe prefecture. There are plenty of opportunities. Shao Qingyuan nodded. I'll leave tomorrow morning. As he spoke, he glanced at Tong Shui Tao and Zhu. Before Tong Shui Tao could react, Zhu cleverly pulled her out. There was no one in the central room. Shao Qingyuan held Gu Yundong's hand and said in a low voice, "I'll be back in 2 days at most. You have a lot of things to do, but you have to take care of your health. Don't tire yourself out." Gu Yundong felt her hand being wrapped by his broad and warm hand, and her entire body became warm. She pursed her lips. "I know." After a pause, she looked up and said seriously, "If you encounter anything troublesome, you must tell me." Shao Qingyuan smiled. "Yes, I've always listened to you." Gu Yundong glared at him. The next morning, Shao Qingyuan indeed left the Xuanhe prefecture with Zhu. Gu Yundong woke up early and did not see him. She sighed and brought Su Qing to the shop. Today, Madame Dai would bring the chef for the kitchen. Gu Yundong had to teach them how to make pearl milk tea. The kitchen was filled with people who had signed a death contract with Madame Dai. They would not easily leak the formula. Gu Yundong taught them very carefully. She was really tired after a whole day. However, when she went to Gus's shop to patrol as usual at night, Tong Ping and Chen Jinbao, who came to deliver the goods for the second time, brought her a message. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 695. Inventory Emergency. The goods sold too quickly in the prefecture capital. There was still a lot of stock in the workshop, but now, more than half of them are gone. Tong Ping showed the inventory list to Gu Yundong. Ever since the shop opened in the prefectural city, the workshop has not rested, but the stock in the warehouse is still decreasing. In other words, they were short of manpower. Gu Yundong also knew that there were many rich people in the prefecture capital. Their purchasing power was too shocking. Although she had limited their purchases, it was useless. There were even people who protested. Gu Yundong had originally planned to go back and start expanding the workshop after the shop was opened. Unexpectedly, Mr. Dai and Ye Shuang suddenly wanted to open a milk tea shop on a whim. However, these two people did not know much about this aspect, so she had more responsibilities. She was occupied and delayed. However, she had already completed all the things she needed to do in the past 2 days. The renovation of the shop, the selection of the shop assistants, and other trivia could be done by Madame Dai. It was indeed time for her to go back to Yongfu village to take a look. Gu Yundong accepted the list and expressed that she knew what to do. She said to Tong Ping, "I'll go back as soon as possible. Tell Tong En to recruit a group of people first. I'll screen them when I get back." Last time, it was Tong En who went through the first round of the interview first. At that time, he was still very nervous. This time, he should be much more proficient. Gu Yundong intended for him to be fully in charge of the workshop in the future. Since she was not around this time, it was a good opportunity for him to gain experience. Tong Ping immediately agreed. They did not stay in the prefectural city that day. As they had an appointment with someone to purchase the fruits, they left the Xuanhe prefecture before the city gate closed. Since Gu Yundong was planning to go back, she had to settle many things first. Su Qing had been by her side for 2 days. Gu Yundong was no longer worried about her. She only asked her to go to the shop more often after she left. Occasionally, the girl could also go to Gus to see how her brother treated customers as a shop assistant. It was always beneficial for her to read and learn more. It was no longer a problem for Feng Danning with the blueprints. Other than the 2 carpenters who followed him, he also hired a few more people. They were people he had met in the prefectural city previously. They had a good relationship and were skilled. Gus had also stabilized. With the deterrence on the first day of business, basically no one dared to come and find trouble. On the other hand, the next day, she went to look for Madame Dai and Ye Shuang to say goodbye. The 2 of them were very reluctant. They had not even given their shop a name, and the helpers they had chosen had not been introduced to Gu Yundong. The cook's skills were not very good, and they felt that there were still many questions that they had yet to figure out. Now that Gu Yundong was leaving, they felt inexplicably flustered. Gu Yundong's face darkened. She thought to herself that returning to Yongfu village at this time was indeed the right decision. If she continued to stay here, she would probably have to decide everything in the shop. Didn't they say that they would pay money and do everything? Gu Yundong felt that it was necessary for her to nurture their ability to be independent. If this continued, they would become more and more dependent on her. Didn't they know that she was still a child? Hence, she said decisively, if there's anything, you can discuss it. As for anything that needs 3 people to decide, you can write to me. Don't worry. I'll definitely come back when the shop opens. Madame Dai and Ye Shuang had no choice but to nod and let her go back. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. In the end, she bid farewell to her parents and sister. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 696. Clothes-making vacation. Gudajiang was fine. Yongfu village wasn't far from the Xuanhe prefecture, so it was easy for them to meet. But Madame Yang and Gu Yunke did not quite understand. They remembered that the last time they parted ways with Big Sister, they did not see each other for several months. This time, when they heard that she was leaving, the 2 of them pouted and hugged her, unwilling to let go. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'll come to the prefecture capital in half a month at most. It's not like we'll be apart for long. Be good. Gu Dajiang also said, there's no need for half a month. In a few days, it will be time for the clothes-making vacation. It'll bring you back. When the time comes, we'll bring Yunshu and Yuanji to the prefectural city to take a look. Clothes-making vacation? Not only were Madame Yang and Gu Yunka confused, but even Gu Yundong was confused. It was rare for Gu Dajiang to see her reveal such a confused expression. He couldn't help but rub her head and explain. In addition to the one-day leave every 10 days, the academy also has farming leave every May, as well as clothing leave. It's usually after mid-September. Farming leave and clothing leave are both a month. Gu Yundong was enlightened. It turned out that there was winter and summer vacation at this time. Gu Dajiang said, however, the holidays aren't long. Students whose homes are too far away usually won't go back. Our family is close, and the round trip isn't long. It's not a problem for us to return to the village. However, I originally thought that since I had just entered the school, I needed to study harder in the academy. It'll just take the clothes-making vacation for 10 days. In any case, Yunshu and Yuanji can come over during the holidays. Our family can still reunite. Now that I think about it, it's not enough. After all, not all of Yundong's matters were in the prefectural city. Gu Yundong understood. Gu Yundong would not give any more opinions on matters related to studies. Anyway, her father knew what he was doing and he could decide how much rest he wanted. She just turned around and said to Madame Yang and Gu Yunka, "You heard him. It's just a few days later. When the time comes, not only will you be able to see me, but you will also be able to see Yunshu and Yuanji." Only then did Madame Yang and Yunka let go of her, but they had already begun to count the days seriously. After everything was settled, Gu Yundong took Tong Shuitao and drove the carriage towards the city gate. Tong Shuitao pulled the reins and asked, "Miss, since we're going to meet in a few days, why don't we just bring Madam and Second Miss back to Yongfu village?" Gu Yundong leaned against the wall of the carriage and looked at the bustling crowd at the city gate. Many people were queuing up to leave the city with carrying poles and things. Upon hearing this, she smiled and said, "Didn't you see my father's gaze? It's as if I'm the evil person who broke up Mother and Kiki. I can't afford to offend him. It's better to let father take care of them himself." Perhaps because he had been separated from his family for so long last year, Gu Dajiang especially cherished the time he had with his family. Gu Yundong had long discovered this. Every day, when her father came back from school, he would first confirm that his wife and daughter were around before he heaved a sigh of relief. He might have thought that their reunion was a dream. If he was not careful, he would wake up from this dream and his family would disappear. This situation would probably continue for a while before her father slowly adapted. Tong Shuitao did not really understand this psychological problem. In any case, she would listen to Mississippi. The carriage left the city gate. Seeing that the road ahead was wider, Tong Shuitao was about to speed up. Unexpectedly, just as the reins were raised and before she could shake them, she heard Gu Yundong suddenly say, "Wait." Tong Shuitao was puzzled. "What's wrong, miss? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 697. Evil Dogs. Stay away. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. She asked, "Do you know the location of the manor that Brother Shao bought?" "I know." She had already asked her father about this. Gu Yundong paused and said, "Let's go to the manor to take a look." Tong Shuitao was puzzled, but her hands deftly turned the horse and drove in the direction of the manor. Gu Yundong recalled what Shao Qingyuan had said before he left. There seemed to be something going on in the manor. She was curious and decided to take a look. Tong Shuitao happened to know the location. In any case, she was not in a hurry to return to Yongfu village. She was actually very curious. Her father had been to the manor, but she had never been there. This was the betrothal gift that the future husband would give to his wife. As the young miss, she naturally had to announce her identity. Thinking of this, Tong Shuitao was slightly excited, and the speed of the carriage increased. Gu Yundong, who was admiring the scenery outside. The manor was indeed not far away. Gu Yundong saw the things planted in the fields from a distance. Shao Qingyuan had said that a portion of the land was originally used to grow fruits.
Later on, after he bought it, it just so happened that after the farming season, the fields that planted food had already harvested.
He instructed them not to plant food, but to plant fruit trees and medicinal herbs. Many tenants were unwilling, but Shao Qingyuan had always been decisive. If they didn't agree, he wouldn't rent it to these tenants. Originally, when the farmstead changed owners, the previous contract between the tenants and the original owners had already been broken. Even if Shao Qingyuan replaced all of them, no one would dare to say anything. Only then did the tenants not dare to say anything. Later on, when they heard Shao Qingyuan say that he would buy all the fruits and herbs they planted and that the price was not low, they were relieved and began to plant them. Gu Yundong looked at the fields and saw all kinds of fruit trees. Some fruit trees must have been transplanted from other places. The trunks were tall. Some fruit trees were originally planted here, and they were already filled with fruits. Some of them had just been planted, and only tree saplings that were half the height of a person appeared. However, it could be seen that they were all well taken care of. Most of these fruit trees were in the periphery, and the medicinal herbs were inside. It seemed that they were surrounded and protected by these fruit trees. There was a fence around the fruit trees, which was similar to the orchard in Yongfu village. The carriage got closer and closer.
Just as they were about to see the shadow of the manor, a series of barks suddenly entered their ears.
Tong Shuitao was shocked. She instinctively pulled the reins tightly, and the carriage suddenly stopped.
In the blink of an eye, the barking of the dog was right in front of him.
What made people's hearts skip a beat was the sound of barking continued. It was obvious that it was not one dog.
Sure enough, in the next moment, 3 tall and fierce dogs rushed out from 3 directions and surrounded the carriage.
Tong Shuitao. F***ck, this dog even knew how to outflank? The 3 dogs did not approach her either.
They stood 2 meters away from the carriage and looked at them covetously, but their eyes were fierce and ready to attack.
It was as long as Tong Shuitao made any movement, they would pounce forward in the next moment and tear her into pieces. Fortunately, Tong Shuitao was strong and good at martial arts. She had also entered the mountains and met wild boars before. She was not afraid of dogs. She even glared at them one by one and sneered. "Evil dogs, stay away. Otherwise, I won't be polite." If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 698. They are very cute. She had just finished speaking when Gu Yundong slapped the back of her head. What evil dogs? The 3 dogs are clearly guarding this orchard loyally. They're loyal. Don't scare them. I scare them? Miss, did you get the wrong person?
Not only her, but a young man who had just run over from behind almost fell to the ground when he heard this.
Gu Yundong heard the commotion and looked up to the side. He saw a 20-year-old youth walking over with sweat all over his face. The 3 dogs should be under his control. After he came over, they quietened down and stopped barking fiercely. The young man walked to the front of the carriage and looked up at them. He asked, "May I ask who you are? What are you doing here?" Gu Yundong was still thinking about how to introduce herself when she heard Tong Shuitao jump down from the carriage and say, "My miss is the new master of this manor. Naturally, she's here to inspect the manor." Gu Yundong was speechless. Wasn't this introduction a little shameless? The young man was speechless. Should he let the dogs bite them?
He had heard of people who came to find trouble and pretend to be acquaintances, but he had never seen anyone directly come to pretend to be his master. The 2 women probably didn't know that the boss happened to come to the manor yesterday, right? Seeing that the young man was frowning and seemed to be about to release the dogs to bite someone, Gu Yundong explained more clearly, "Shao Qingyuan is at the farm, right? We're here to look for him." Only then did the expression on the young man's face relax. She knows the new boss? Then she shouldn't be here to do bad things. "Who are you people?" "My name is Gu Yundong and him." Before she could finish speaking, the young man's eyes lit up. "You're Madame Dong? You know me?" The young man nodded repeatedly. "No, I don't." "Then why are you nodding?" "But the boss said that he has a fianca copyright with the surname Gu." Tong Shuitao secretly whispered into Gu Yundong's ear, "Miss, your future husband is afraid that you will run away. You haven't even come to the manor yet,
but he introduced you to the people here. There was no need for her to say anything. Gu Yundong's heart was warm. She looked at the young man. Shao Qingyuan came to the manor yesterday, right? Can I go meet him now? Of course. The young man was even more certain of her identity when he saw that she knew about the boss visit yesterday. He called out to the 3 fierce dogs and told them to continue guarding. Then, he came over to hold the reins of the carriage and led Gu Yundong inside. As he walked, he introduced, Big Black and the others are actually very obedient and intelligent. With them guarding the orchard here, no one dares to come. Previously, a few people wanted to steal fruits, but they were surrounded by Big Black and the others and almost peed their pants. As he spoke, he felt that she was a little vulgar. How could he say that they peed her pants in front of Miss? The young man quickly laughed dryly and said, In short, Big Black and the others were just afraid that you're bad people, Mississippi. They didn't mean to scare you. Gu Yundong could tell that he was afraid that she would be frightened and cause trouble for the 3 dogs. She smiled. I can tell that they are indeed very cute. Gu Yundong gave him a small piece of silver. Take this and buy some meat bones for them. Treat it as a bonus. The young man was stunned for a moment before he smiled happily. It's good that you don't blame them. I can't accept this silver. The owner has given money to me. I'll take good care of Big Black. As they spoke, the carriage had already arrived at the entrance of the manor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 699. Master is not here. Gu Yundong jumped down from the carriage and threw the small piece of silver to him. Take it. This is compensation for their hard work. As she spoke, she asked Tong Shui Tao to knock on the door. The young man felt that the silver was a little hot in his hand. He wanted to refuse, but footsteps were already coming from the manor. The young man thought for a moment and did not refuse. He put away the silver. Soon, the door of the manor was opened and a woman in her 30s came out. She was stunned when she saw Gu Yundong standing outside. The young man reacted quickly and hurriedly introduced, Aunt Wan, this is Miss Gu, the boss Fianca copyright-e. Then she said to Gu Yundong, Aunt Wan is the housekeeper in charge of the manor. When Madame Wan heard this, she was stunned on the spot. She looked at Gu Yundong sizing her up. She fell silent and the atmosphere instantly became a little stiff. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly. Seeing this, the young man hurriedly called out to her, Aunt Wan. Madame Wan suddenly came back to her senses. She hurriedly squeezed out a smile and moved aside. So it's Miss Gu. My bad. I didn't react for a moment. Miss, please come in. Gu Yundong nodded and stepped through the door. The young man behind her said, Miss Gu, I'll get going. Gu Yundong did not ask him to stay. She nodded and the young man led the carriage to the shed. He tied the rope, fed the horse, and ran away quickly. Tong Shui Tao leaned close to Gu Yundong's ear and whispered, This person seems to be stupid. He doesn't even know how to perform well in front of this rare opportunity. He didn't even say his name. Gu Yundong glanced at her. Little Tao, you actually have the cheek to say that others are stupid? If we want to know his name, we can ask someone else. Madame Wan led the way and did not hear their conversation. Hence, Tong Shui Tao took a few steps forward and asked, Aunt Wan, what was the name of that young man just now? Aunt Wan hurriedly said, That's Yuan Cheng from the Yuan family. The Yuan family is a tenant in the manor. Yuan Cheng has been naughty since he was young. He raised a few dogs that are especially fierce, so we don't dare to approach them. Master said that those dogs are perfect to protect the orchard and gave the Yuan family a lot of money to take good care of those dogs. Yuan Cheng? Tong Shui Tao got the information she wanted and returned to Gu Yundong's side. When the 3 of them entered the courtyard, Gu Yundong took a closer look at the manor. Although Shao Qingyuan said that the farmstead was small, it was still much bigger than her house in Yongfu village. The so-called small was only relative to those big farmsteads. They walked inside. When they were about to reach the central room, Madame Wan raised her voice and shouted, Hubby, hubby, Miss Gu is here. Not long after she finished speaking, footsteps came from ahead. Gu Yundong looked up and saw a tall but thin man coming out of the room. The man walked over quickly. When he heard Madame Wan's introduction, His expression immediately became more respectful. So it's Miss Gu. I didn't go out to welcome you in time. Please forgive me. This should be the head of the manor, Shui Zongguang. Shao Qingyuan had said that when he bought this manor, the previous owner had requested him to buy it with the Shui family. Gu Yundong sized him up and asked, I'm here to look for brother Shao. Where is he? Shui Zongguang hurriedly replied, Master just arrived at the manor yesterday and brought people out. Out? Do you know where he went? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 700. Something's wrong with Madame Wan. Shui Zongguang said, Master went to the Zhao village next door to look for someone yesterday. As he spoke, he invited Gu Yundong into the central room. Then, he turned his head and urged Madame Wan, Why aren't you pouring tea? After Madame Wan left, Gu Yundong asked, Why did he go to the Zhao village? Did he encounter any trouble? Shui Zongguang was a little hesitant, as if he was wondering if he should say something. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. If you can't say, then forget it. No. In the end, Shui Zongguang still replied, Actually, a self-taught doctor passed by the manor 2 days ago to stay. When I was chatting with him, I heard him say that he had a lot of rare medicinal herbs on hand. Master had previously instructed people to keep an eye on by Musi. If there was any news, they would immediately report it to him. Therefore, I asked if there was such a medicine. To my surprise, the self-taught doctor really did have it. I immediately sent a letter to Master. Because a portion of the land on the farm had been rented to plant medicinal herbs, Shui Zongguang had also gotten to know a few herbs. Bai Musi, in particular, had been requested by his master. He had also seen the Bai Musi that the self-taught doctor had taken out. It really looked like that, but he was not sure, so he quickly reported it to his master. Bai Musi? Gu Yundong was stunned. So Shao Qingyuan said that there was an urgent matter because he had received news about Bai Musi? Was he here to confirm if Bai Musi was real or fake? This person was really. Shui Zongguang saw that she did not speak and he felt a little uneasy. Could it be that he should not have said these things? However, his master had said long ago that this manor would belong to Miss Gu in the future, including their Shui family. Seriously speaking, Miss Gu was his master, so he naturally could not hide it. Gu Yundong suppressed the complicated emotions in her heart and asked, Is the self-taught doctor in the Zhao village now? Yes, the doctor traveled everywhere to treat patients. He waited in the manor for 2 days and couldn't wait anymore, so he went to the Zhao village. After Master came, he quickly went to the Zhao village. As she spoke, Madame Wan had already brought in tea. Gu Yundong asked Shui Zongguang, Which direction is the Zhao village? Miss, are you going to look for Master? Yeah. As Gu Yundong spoke, she saw from the corner of her eye that Madame Wan's hand, which was holding the tea, paused for a moment. Then, she acted as if nothing had happened. Shui Zongguang did not see it. He only nodded and said, All right, miss, rest for a while and have some tea. I'll feed the horses some grass. Well, set off in a while. Seeing Gu Yundong nod in agreement, Shui Zongguang left the central room. Madame Wan smiled at Gu Yundong and left. As soon as the two of them left, Tong Shui Tao whispered into Gu Yundong's ear, Miss, there's something wrong with that Madame Wan. When she saw us, her eyes were flickering. It seems like she's hiding something from us. Gu Yundong looked at her in surprise. Not bad. You can even tell that something is wrong with Madame Wan. Tong Shui Tao was slightly smug. After all, I've been by Miss' side for so long. I have to improve. All right, since you think there's something wrong with the Wan family, follow them and take a look. Tong Shui Tao immediately became excited. Yes, Mississippi. Be careful. Don't let anyone find out. Tong Shui Tao clenched her fists. Miss, don't worry. I've learned martial arts for so long. I have this ability to eavesdrop. It was as if eavesdropping was a glorious thing. Gu Yundong was very upset. She waved her hand and asked her to leave quickly. Tong Shui Tao chuckled, but her footsteps were very light as she followed Madame Wan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 701. Water in your brain. Madame Wan came out of the central room and quickly caught up with Zongguang. After turning a corner, she finally couldn't take it anymore. She pulled Zongguang and said with a complaining tone, "Why did you bring her to look for master?" Tong Shuitao happened to hear this, and her eyes flickered slightly, as if she was about to hear a big secret. Zongguang frowned and said in a low voice, "Mrs. Master's fiancée. If she wants to see master, we naturally have to bring her along. What's wrong with that?" But Madame Wan stammered, as if she wanted to say something, but she looked troubled. A bad premonition flashed across Zongguang's mind. He looked at her abruptly. "Are you hiding something from me?" No. Zongguang had been married to her for many years. Seeing her like this, how could he believe her? His tone immediately became heavier. "Tell me, what are you hiding from me?" Madame Wan was a little afraid of him. Seeing his dark expression, she couldn't help but shrink her neck and say softly, Didn't Qingyuan like master?" Early this morning, she saw that master hadn't returned, so she went to the Jiao village. What if that girl goes there too? Wouldn't they bump into each other? Her voice was soft, and Tong Shuitao finally heard it clearly. She immediately widened her eyes and covered her mouth to prevent herself from exclaiming. Zongguang widened his eyes and looked at Madame Wan, who was shrinking her neck in guilt. His expression was especially ugly. Are you trying to anger me to death? I told you last time that master has a fiancée. Moreover, anyone with a discerning eye can tell that he values Miss Gu very much. I asked Qingyuan to put away her thoughts. In the end, not only did she not give up, but you also helped her hide it from me. Is there water in your brain? Madame Wan was a little afraid of him, but she was still a little unconvinced. You said it yourself. She's just a fiancée. Moreover, why are you so sure that master values that Miss Gu? Our Qingyuan is so beautiful. No one within a 5-kilometer radius is more beautiful than her. Moreover, Qingyuan doesn't have to be master's wife. Being a concubine is Qingyuan's blessing. Shut up. Zongguang could not stand it anymore. His fingers trembled as he pointed at her. As expected of a woman's opinion. Let me tell you, if you continue to allow Qingyuan to get close to master, we won't be able to live. It's not as serious as you say. Zongguang saw that she did not know what was good for her, and the veins on his forehead were about to explode. As expected, you've stayed in the manor for too long. You're so stupid that you can't even differentiate between master and servant. With that, he didn't look at Madame Wan again and just walked forward even faster. Madame Wan was stunned for a moment. She quickly took a few steps forward and asked, "Where are you going?" "Send Miss to the Jiao village and bring Qingyuan back. You search for a good family the next few days. I'll go to master and ask for his grace to marry Qingyuan off as soon as possible." Madame Wan was shocked. "Do you have to do this?" "It's for our family." Tong Shuitao no longer listened. She turned around and walked back into the central room. Yundong was standing in the courtyard and looking at a jujube tree in front of her. The jujubes on the tree had already ripened. She pulled some slightly and plucked a large bunch. She casually wiped them with her clothes and took a few bites. Yes, they were quite sweet. Chapter 702. How bold. Tong Shuitao watched anxiously. She went to her side and said, "Oh miss, you are still eating dates. Something bad has happened." "What's the big deal?" Yundong moved the dates in her hand to her. "Do you want to eat them? They're quite sweet." "Is that so?" Tong Shuitao took one and stuffed it into her mouth. Then her eyes lit up. "It's really quite delicious. I'll pick some and bring them back." She paused for a moment. "Can I pick them? Brother Shao bought this farmstead. Everything here belongs to him. Do you think we can pluck them?" Tong Shuitao immediately became happy. However, just as she was about to reach out, she immediately retracted her hand. Miss, I was talking about serious matters. I almost forgot about it when you interrupted me." "You almost forgot about that? I don't think it's a serious matter." Yundong stopped after eating a few. She stuffed the dates in her hand into Tong Shuitao's arms, clapped her hands,
and entered the central room before saying, "All right, tell me." Tong Shui Tao put away the dates and quickly went to Gu Yundong's ear. She muttered everything she had heard from the Shui couple. Gu Yundong's hand, which was holding the teacup, paused. She frowned slightly. That Qiner had taken a fancy to Shao Qingyuan, and now she was going to the Jiao village to get close to him? Miss, this woman is too shameless. She clearly knows that her master is already engaged, but she still keeps trying to get close to him. And that. Gu Yundong stood up with a swish and walked out of the door without another word. Tong Shui Tao was stunned. Miss, where are you going? Jiao village. Tong Shui Tao hurriedly followed. She ran so quickly that her dates almost flew away. Gu Yundong walked very quickly. Just as he reached the door, he bumped into Shui Zongguang. Shui Zongguang was stunned. Miss, the carriage is already at the door. Are we going to the Jiao village now? Gu Yundong nodded and walked out of the door expressionlessly. For a moment, Shui Zongguang was very nervous. He could clearly feel that Gu Yundong's expression was much colder than before. He even saw Tong Shui Tao, who was following behind, glare at him. Shui Zongguang frowned, but he did not dare to delay any longer. After Gu Yundong and her companion got into the carriage, he sat on the shaft and headed straight for the Jiao village. Tong Shui Tao sat opposite Gu Yundong and watched as Miss closed her eyes and did not speak. Her heart was beating like a drum. Miss seemed to be angry. Had she been too straightforward just now? She should have been more tactful and prepared Miss mentally. It was all Qiner's fault. That vixen was shameless. Tong Shui Tao scolded Shui Qin in her heart. However, Gu Yundong, who was sitting opposite her, had mixed feelings. She wasn't angry. She was just a little unhappy. When she heard the news, she became a little frustrated. Perhaps Shao Qingyuan's reputation in Yongfu village was not good, so the women in Yongfu village and even the nearby villages did not dare to approach him. Most of them ran away when they saw him. So much so that Gu Yundong almost forgot that Shao Qingyuan was also a very handsome man. He was a person who made women blush and their hearts beat faster. After leaving Yongfu village, there would probably be many women who did not understand Shao Qingyuan's personality and wanted to pounce on him. Gu Yundong had always been busy. In addition, Shao Qingyuan had always put her first, giving her a sense of security. She had never thought that a woman would try to steal him away. This Shui Qin was indeed bold. Chapter 703. Came out of reputation. The carriage traveled quickly and soon arrived at the entrance of the Jiao family village. Shui Zongguang asked the villagers where the self-taught doctor lived. Sure enough, someone pointed at the village chief's house and said, "Over there. Do you see that big house? He's been staying there for the past 2 days." As he spoke, the villager added, "You're also here to see that doctor?" "That's unfortunate. Dr. Lu happened to enter the mountain to pick herbs. He went yesterday. I don't know if he can come back today." Pick herbs? Gu Yundong looked at the mountain not far away. This mountain was not as big as Yongfu village, but it was not small either. But it didn't matter. She wasn't here to look for a doctor. Hence, Shui Zongguang changed the question. "Then do you know that a young master surnamed Shao came here yesterday?" "Oh, you mean young master Shao? I know him." The villager nodded. "He's also at the village chief's house. He should still be there." "Thank you." Shui Zongguang thanked him and drove the carriage towards the big house pointed out by the villagers. However, the road in the Jiao village was not easy to ride on. The path was very narrow, and the carriage could not pass through. The three of them could only get out of the carriage and tie it to the door of a farmer's house. They asked someone to help keep an eye on it before walking towards the village chief's house. After taking a few steps, Shui Zongguang suddenly stopped in his tracks and pointed in the direction of the village chief's door in surprise. "Miss, that's Dr. Lu." Gu Yundong looked up and saw a middle-aged man carrying a medicine basket slowly walking towards the village chief's courtyard. It seemed that they had come at the right time. Dr. Lu had just returned. Moreover, Dr. Lu seemed to be quite popular in the Jiao village. As soon as he entered the courtyard, a few villagers followed him. She even shouted, "Dr. Lu, you're finally back. Have you collected all the medicine?" "Dr. Lu, my grandson's cough is getting worse. Did you find the herb you mentioned yesterday?" "Dr. Lu,
I felt a little dizzy just now. Take my pulse. Am I sick?
Dr. Lu. A few people entered the courtyard, and the village chief's house instantly became lively.
Gu Yundong frowned. Shui Zongguang, who was beside her, said, "There's no physician in the Jiao village. This is the countryside. Even if someone has a minor illness, they don't take it seriously. Dr. Lu came to treat everyone. I heard that he doesn't charge medical fees and only takes some medicinal herbs as a token. So everyone who's sick or not has come to let him take a look." Gu Yundong was a little surprised. There was no consultation fee. Let's go and take a look. Gu Yundong took the lead and walked towards the small courtyard. Shui Zongguang and Tong Shui Tao hurriedly followed. They were a step too late.
There were already many people in the courtyard.
A young man was talking to everyone. "I know everyone is anxious, but young Master Shao has been waiting here for the entire day. First come, first served, right? When young Master Shao and Dr. Lu are done talking, Dr. Lu will come out and treat everyone immediately. Calm down. Calm down." A villager asked curiously, "Jiao Laosan, is this young Master Shao also here to see a doctor? Isn't he a young master? He doesn't look like he lacks money. Why don't you go to the city to see those doctors?" This means that our Dr. Liu's medical skills are good, so this young Master Shao came because of his reputation. Yes, he came because of the doctor's reputation. Unexpectedly, as soon as the two villagers finished speaking, a furious voice suddenly came from inside. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 704. This herb is fake. Nonsense. This is simply nonsense. His voice was a little loud and stern. Accompanied by the sound of slamming the table, the villagers who were chatting in the courtyard fell silent for a moment. After a while, someone whispered, "This sounds like Dr. Liu's voice. What's wrong? What happened?" Jiao Laosan was also stunned for a moment. He was the third son of the village chief and was afraid that something would happen inside. He quickly turned around and entered the house. The other villagers looked at each other. After a pause, they squeezed to the door. Gu Yundong also walked forward, but she did not move into the crowd. She looked around and walked to the window beside her. She looked in through the open window. There were a few people sitting in the central room. One of them was Dr. Lu, whom he had seen earlier. At this moment, his face was red and his eyes were wide open. The beard on his chin trembled, and he looked very angry. There was also a man in his 40s in the central room. He looked a little like Jiao Laosan. He should be the village chief of the Jiao village. Then, Shao Qingyuan sat on the chair and drank tea calmly. He was exceptionally calm in the face of Dr. Liu's anger. "The thing you took out is indeed not by Musi. This herb is fake." As he spoke, he glanced at a box on the table. The box should contain the so-called by Musi. Gu Yundong glanced at it and felt that it was quite similar to the portrait in the book Dr. Song had given her. Dr. Lu sneered and closed the box. "I don't know which family's young master you are, but you had nothing better to do that you came to make fun of me. This is indeed an authentic by Musi. A while ago, I even sold 2 stocks. The buyers are rich families and have doctors in their residences. If it's fake, the doctors would have been able to identify it. They would have come to find trouble with me long ago." As he spoke, he sized up Shao Qingyuan, and the sarcasm in his voice intensified. "You're not even a doctor, yet you're pretending to know everything. This will only make you look ignorant." The villagers outside also felt that it made sense. A villager who had let Dr. Lu treat him shouted, that's right, You're not a doctor. Do you know how precious this herb is? Is this by Musi too expensive? If you can't afford it, you cannot belittle Dr. Lu here. He's definitely trying to lower the price. Dr. Lu, don't fall for it. At most you won't sell it. There will always be people who know their stuff." When Dr. Lu heard this, he nodded and even turned around to cup his hands at everyone. "Thank you everyone for speaking up for me." Then, he turned to look at Shao Qingyuan. "I'm not selling by Musi anymore. You can leave." Ah Zhu, who was standing behind Shao Qingyuan, sneered. You're the shameless person who doesn't know anything and earn black-hearted money by tricking people. Our young master knows much more than you do. A villager immediately said, Dr. Lu didn't earn black-hearted money. He didn't even charge consultation fees. Yeah. He didn't even take a dime. Shao Qingyuan looked up and glanced at the villager who was speaking at the door. He nodded. He did not charge the consultation fee. He just charged some medicinal herbs. Everyone frowned, not understanding what he meant. Zhu had been by Shao Qingyuan's side for so long, so he naturally understood at once and immediately laughed out loud. Someone felt goosebumps from his laughter and asked sternly, What are you laughing at? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 705. Shao Qingyuan says more. Zhu sighed and said coldly, I'm laughing at how you're being played by others. They don't charge consultation fees, but you have to pay for medicine fees. These medicinal herbs aren't cheap at all. Moreover, I heard that all the villagers Dr. Lu treated are sick without exception. This is really too coincidental. Everyone who looks for him has to spend money to buy medicine. Is there a difference between this and paying consultation fees? The villagers were stunned when they heard that. Village Chief Jiao, who had been silent, suddenly looked at Dr. Lu. Yes, it was said to be a free consultation, but why was it so coincidental that everyone was more or less sick and in pain? Dr. Lu was a little flustered at that moment. He glared fiercely at Zhu and explained, The villagers came to see a doctor naturally because they felt uncomfortable. It's normal for them to be sick and in pain. I accepted the money for the medicinal herbs, but the price was not high. It's much cheaper than the herbs in the medicine shop in the prefecture capital. If you don't believe me, feel free to go to the shop and ask for the price of the medicinal herbs. You will naturally know if I'm being kind or black-hearted. Everyone was a little hesitant by his self-righteous appearance. Both of them seemed to have a point. Shao Qingyuan couldn't be bothered to listen to his excuses anymore. Whether Dr. Lu was lying and scamming money here or the villagers didn't believe him, it had nothing to do with him. He had no obligation to prove his point to these fence-sitters. He had only come to buy Musi. Since he had confirmed that it was not the case, he planned to leave. However, just as Shao Qingyuan stood up, the village chief of the Jiao village stood up and said, Young Master Shao, please wait. He walked up to Shao Qingyuan and looked at him sincerely. Can you make yourself clear? Shao Qingyuan looked at him. This village chief was not a bad person. Seeing that he had received a lot of care from the village chief yesterday, he still said a few more words. The Bai Musi imbuying has silver roots and purple branches and leaves. It's about 6 inches long and has 5 leaves. It's an extremely rare herb. But Dr. Liu's Bai Musi has white roots with a few thin patterns. Although it also has 5 leaves, their colors are dim. Also, he claimed that he sold 2 stalks a couple of days ago, which is ridiculous. If Bai Musi were so easy to find, its price wouldn't have been so high and I wouldn't have to spend so much time searching for it. When everyone heard this, they could not help but look at the box containing the herbs. Dr. Liu's face turned pale as he hugged the box tighter. Shao Qingyuan continued, If I'm not mistaken, the medicinal ingredient in Dr. Liu's box is called purple summer leaves. It's indeed a medicinal ingredient that's very similar to Bai Musi. This medicinal ingredient is also rare, but it's much more ordinary than Bai Musi. The price is also worlds apart. As for its medicinal properties, it's neither good nor bad, right? It can be eaten as a tonic, but it's useless for treating illnesses. Dr. Liu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Shao Qingyuan sneered and glanced at the herb basket beside him. Also, the herbs he picked on the mountain today are all weeds with little medicinal effect. If you don't believe me, take the herbs in his herb basket to the doctor in town to take a look. When everyone heard this, they instantly stared at Dr. Liu's medicine basket with burning eyes. Jiao Laosan received his father's gaze and immediately took a step forward to get the medicine basket. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 706. The girl in front. Dr. Liu's expression changed drastically. He subconsciously reached out to hug the medicine basket. In this way everyone understood. Their expressions changed drastically and they glared at him angrily. They were so angry that their bodies were trembling. You shameless thing. You actually used this medicinal herb to deceive us. No wonder my grandson hasn't recovered after coughing for 2 days. You heartless thing, you want to kill us. This is treatment, you quack. If anyone's illness is seriously delayed by you, you'll be the murderer. Bring him to the officials, village chief. This kind of black-hearted thing must be sent to the officials. Yes, he must have tricked other villages too. I don't know how many people around here have been persecuted by him. Maybe the herbs he sells have already killed people. The more Dr. Lu listened, the paler his face became, and his hands and feet slowly turned cold. He still wanted to defend himself, but facing the indignant villagers, he could not find any excuse. Soon, a villager went forward to pull him and snatched the medicine basket from his arms. It's evidence that he's harming people. Come, let's go see the officials. Dr. Lu staggered a few steps from being pulled by a few people. Even his wrist was bleeding from a woman's nails. Hearing that the villagers insisted on sending him to the officials, the panic in Dr. Liu's heart grew. Gradually, hatred spread, and he looked at Shao Qingyuan with resentment. Shao Qingyuan raised his eyebrows. Dr. Lu suddenly broke free from the villager's grip. Then, she quickly rushed towards Shao Qingyuan. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. You had to interfere. Shao Qingyuan didn't care about him at all. Seeing him rush forward, a figure suddenly blocked in front of him and pushed Dr. Lu away. You're the one who plotted against us for money, yet you're blaming others for exposing you. You're simply shameless. A crisp voice sounded in the room, attracting everyone's attention, including Gu Yundong, who was standing behind the windowsill outside. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw this woman bravely standing in front of Shao Qingyuan as if she wanted to protect him, but she was trembling and trying her best to suppress her fear. She turned around and glanced at Shui Zongguang. Who is she? Shui Zongguang felt that Miss Gu seemed to have seen through something and understood everything. His forehead could not help but break out in cold sweat. He laughed dryly and hurriedly said, she's my daughter. Her name is Shui Qin. After that, she explained, this morning, I was a little worried that Master hadn't returned to the manor, so I asked Qiner to come over and see what had happened. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Zongguang wanted to slap himself. It would have been better if he hadn't explained, but once he did, he felt like he was hiding something. Gu Yundong replied with a meaningful, oh, and continued to look into the house. Shao Qingyuan didn't seem to be satisfied with this woman who suddenly stood in front of him. He frowned slightly and looked at Zhu. The latter touched his nose and said softly, Young master, this. Miss Shui was standing in front of me. He also wanted to stand in front of young master. Wasn't it because his geographical location didn't allow it? He let Shui Qin beat him to it. Shui Qin's back was facing them, so she naturally didn't see their exchange of glances. She only glared at Dr. Lu, who had been pushed to the ground by her, and said, Our young master is trying to seek justice from the bottom of his heart. He didn't let you harm so many people, but you still bite back and say that my young master is nosy? Are we going to let a poisonous snake like you go around harming people? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 707. Why are you here? Yes, this girl is right. The villagers were united against a common enemy and were still a little afraid. Young Master Shao had exposed his scheme and saved the entire Jiao village. In the end, there were so many of them and Dr. Lu had almost hurt young Master Shao. It was unbearable. Therefore, Village Chief Jiao quickly got a few tall men to tie up Dr. Lu and send him to the government. Dr. Lu was still struggling. At this moment, he regretted not taking out the medicinal hoe he had used to dig for herbs in the medicine basket. Otherwise, he would have been able to take this opportunity to escape. Now, he had no power to retaliate. Other than cussing loudly with hatred in his eyes, all his struggles were useless. Soon he was pulled out. Village Chief Jiao followed him out. Jiao Laosan originally wanted to stay and entertain Shao Qingyuan. However, when he looked up, he saw the girl standing beside Shao Qingyuan with a shy expression. He immediately understood. Hee, Wasn't there a saying that a gentleman should not be a third wheel? He wouldn't stand in their way and stop them from talking. Therefore, Jiao Laosan gave Xueqin an encouraging look. Although the latter did not see it, he still went out with a smile. Before leaving, he even glanced at Azhu, but Azhu did not react at all. Jiao Laosan sighed. This man was really tactless. If he ruined his master's plans, he would probably not be able to climb up in the future. He shook his head and went out. Seeing that there were no outsiders in the room, Xueqin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She turned around shyly and asked with concern, "Young master, are you all right? Dr. Lu didn't hit you just now, right? I was so frightened just now. I thought he had a knife in his hand. Fortunately, there was nothing. Otherwise, Before she could finish speaking, Shao Qingyuan suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of the windowsill. There were only villagers outside just now, so Shao Qingyuan didn't pay special attention. Now that the villagers in the courtyard had left, Gu Yundong and the others, who were standing by the window, appeared especially out of place. Shao Qingyuan turned around and met a familiar pair of smiling eyes. His pupils constricted, and the originally cold expression on his face instantly softened. His joy was obvious, and the indulgence in his eyes seemed to overflow. "What are you doing here?" His voice was gentle, and Xueqin, who had her head lowered, did not notice his gaze. However, she was very happy in her heart and thought that he was talking to her. She quickly replied, "I saw that you had not returned all night and was a little worried, so I came to see if something had happened." In fact, Xueqin had come over early in the morning and had long wanted to express her concern. However, she never had the chance to talk to him. After she came to the Jiao village and found him, she didn't have the chance to talk to him. Not only was Azhu by his side, but the village chief of the Jiao village was also in front of her. Who knew that Dr. Lu suddenly wanted to attack young master just now and she went to block it? Instead, young master noticed him and even was so gentle. At this moment, Xueqin was actually a little grateful to the black-hearted Dr. Lu for creating such a good opportunity for her and letting young master see her intentions. Shao Qingyuan said, "Come here." Xueqin lowered her head, feeling even more embarrassed. Her heart was beating exceptionally fast. She hummed softly and walked towards Shao Qingyuan. However, she had just taken a step when she was suddenly pushed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 708. Gu Yundong's reward. Xueqin staggered back 2 steps. When she looked up, she realized that the person who pushed her was Azhu. She asked in shock, "What are you doing?" Azhu shouted, "He's not talking to you. Go away." This time, he reacted fast enough. Young master shouldn't glare at him. Xueqin was stunned for a moment before looking up at Shao Qingyuan aggrievedly. Then, she realized that Shao Qingyuan had been turning his head to look out of the window. Outside the window stood an exquisite-looking girl with curved eyes, as well as someone with ashen face and clenched fists, wishing he could beat her to death, her father. What was going on? Who was this girl? Why was her father here? Gu Yundong looked up and measured the height of the windowsill. She realized that the window of the house was quite big. She immediately stopped walking towards the door and jumped in with her right hand on the windowsill. Before she could land, Shao Qingyuan had already run over and caught her. He frowned and said unhappily, "Why didn't you go through the door? The ground is uneven. Be careful and don't fall over." Gu Yundong smiled. "Don't I have you?" The two of them acted as if no one was around, provoking Xueqin, who was standing not far away. She widened her eyes and fixed her gaze on Gu Yundong. She wanted to ask who this woman was and why young master was so good to her and so gentle. However, she could not speak because her father, Zongguang, had already entered from the door and dragged her out, not giving her a chance. Xueqin was led out of the door. She stared at Gu Yundong in the room indignantly. Azhu was especially perceptive this time. He walked out of the room quickly and even very considerately closed the door of the central room for the two of them. Even the last bit of light was blocked for Xueqin, and she looked a little unwilling. But Gu Yundong, who was in the house, did not even look at her from the beginning to the end. She did not take her seriously at all. She only had eyes for Shao Qingyuan now.
After everyone left, Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but squeeze her hand and ask again, "Why are you here?" "I'm here to see what kind of trouble you're in." The gentleness in Shao Qingyuan's eyes intensified. "You know now?" "Yes, I do." Gu Yundong slowly took a deep breath. "It turns out that you've been looking for Bai Musi all along, and you've memorized Bai Musi's characteristics and appearance. You're even afraid of mixing it up with other herbs and finding the wrong one, so you remember the herbs that look similar clearly. Did you put in a lot of effort?" Shao Qingyuan looked at her deeply. Indeed, she understood. She had always been so considerate. Shao Qingyuan felt that he could not leave her. He nodded slightly, his voice slightly hoarse. "Yes, so are there any rewards?" Gu Yundong tilted her head, thought for a moment, and suddenly grabbed her waist. Shao Qingyuan thought that she would hug him, but in the next moment, the woman in front of him suddenly tiptoed and kissed his face. Shao Qingyuan. He widened his eyes and looked at the woman who had already retreated. She was still smiling, as if everything just now was just his imagination. "You don't like it?" Gu Yundong could not help but ask when she saw that he did not react for a long time. Shao Qingyuan suddenly came back to his senses. "I like it very much. Let's do it again?" "Damn you. You're pushing your luck. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 709. Gu Yundong's Guilt. Gu Yundong patted her hand and said, "Since you came to look for Bai Musi, why didn't you tell me the day before yesterday?" "It's not easy to get Bai Musi. I'm worried that it's fake news. We have to confirm it first. Otherwise, won't all of you be happy for nothing?" Reality proved that it was indeed fake. Even though he didn't have much hope from the beginning, Shao Qingyuan was still disappointed. Gu Yundong asked him, "Other than this time, how many other times have you heard news about Bai Musi?" "2 times, I guess." "Unfortunately, neither of them are real." Gu Yundong fell silent for a moment. She did not speak. Shao Qingyuan could not help but pat her back. "What's wrong? There's no need to be disheartened. We'll find it eventually. It's not like there's only one Bai Musi in the world. We'll find it if we search longer." Gu Yundong sighed and smiled bitterly. "Bai Musi is clearly what my mother needs. I'm not as focused on that as you." She felt ashamed. It seemed that ever since she brought Madame Yang to see Song Dejiang and confirmed that her life was not in danger, Gu Yundong had been half relieved. Although she was also looking for Bai Musi, she was no longer in such a hurry. As for Shao Qingyuan, in order to find Bai Musi, he went deep into the mountains, opened a pharmacy, memorized the medicinal ingredients, and understood the characteristics of similar herbs. As long as there was any news, he would personally go over to confirm it. She actually did not know how much he had done and how much effort he had put in. Compared to him, she did very little. Gu Yundong lowered her head slightly. At that moment, self-reproach and guilt surged. Shao Qingyuan was stunned for a moment before saying, "Aren't you earning money?" Shao Qingyuan pinched her tender cheek and felt the soft touch under his hand. His voice was hoarse as he said in a low voice, "I'm looking for the herbs. Isn't it just right for you to earn money and buy them?" His voice was low and deep, as if he could comfort people. "Bai Musi is rare and expensive. If you don't work hard to earn more money, what if you can't buy it when you find it later?" That seemed to make sense. Your ability is limited alone. You can't take care of everything. You've already done it very well. Besides, I can't let you do everything. Then why do you still need me, your fiancé? You have to leave something for me to do." Gu Yundong laughed. When did this person become so good at comforting people? She was really too used to doing everything herself, even though she had a family and a fiancé now. However, she was only one person after all. There were some things that she could hand over to someone close and trusted, right? Gu Yundong suddenly understood. She hugged Shao Qingyuan. "All right, let's work hard together. I'll be in charge of working hard to earn money. You'll be in charge of finding medicinal herbs and treating my mother." "Okay." The woman in his arms was soft. Holding her, Shao Qingyuan felt unprecedented satisfaction. He couldn't bear to let go. Unfortunately,
There was a commotion outside the door. Gu Yundong let go of him and rubbed his face twice with a smile until it was red. It's getting late. Let's go back first. Shao Qingyuan heaved a sigh of relief and pulled her open the door. The few people standing outside were stunned for a moment and quickly took a few steps forward. Shao Qingyuan and Xue Qin didn't look at the expectant Xue Qin and walked out of village chief Jiao's house first. The Jiao village was very lively. Shao Qingyuan didn't care and the group walked towards the entrance of the village. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 7:10. Forgot your identity. Shao Qingyuan helped Gu Yundong into her carriage while Tong Shui Tao rode. As for his original carriage, he handed it to Zhu. As soon as Zhu sat in the shaft of the carriage, he said to Xue Qin, who also wanted to come up, "Walk back yourself."
After saying that, he shook the reins and the horse chased after the carriage in front. Xue Qin's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at the carriage that was getting further and further away.
She was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She stomped her feet fiercely and said to Zongguang, who had also been left behind, "Father, look at him. What kind of person is this?" As soon as young master left, he immediately changed his expression and didn't take us seriously. That carriage isn't his. However, Zongguang suddenly shook off her hand and said, "You're the one who thinks too highly of yourself. Who do you think you are? You're just a servant. What right do you have to sit in master's carriage? Little brother Zhu has been by master's side for so long, but you've only seen master twice. You didn't even leave a good impression on master. Zhu is already being polite to you." Xue Qin's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at her father who had scolded her. "Father, what are you talking about? Yes, we're servants. Others look down on us, but we can't look down on ourselves. What's wrong with servants? Are servants not humans? Besides, who said that I didn't leave a good impression on master? I helped master block the danger just now. Master must be touched." It was as if Zongguang was meeting his daughter for the first time.
As expected, they had stayed in the manor for so long that they had forgotten their identity and really thought of themselves as the master of the manor.
He raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. Xue Qin only felt a burning pain on her face, and her expression was filled with shock. "Father, you hit me? Yes, I'm waking you up. You're trying to get close to master even though you know he has a fiancé. That's shameless." Zongguang sneered. "Master is touched? I didn't see that at all. Do you think that it was something to protect your master? Let me tell you, it was completely unnecessary. If you hadn't been in his front, he would have kicked Dr. Lu away. I saw everything outside of the window. Master was not touched, only annoyed." "No way." Zongguang felt extremely tired and blamed himself for not teaching his daughter well. Just as he was about to say something, he heard a soft click. Zongguang was stunned and looked up. He saw Jiao Laosan walking out from the corner with an awkward smile on his face. It seemed like he had been standing there for a while and had probably heard a lot of things. No matter how much Zongguang wanted to educate his daughter, he could not do it in front of outsiders. He smiled at Jiao Laosan and dragged Xue Qin away. Jiao Laosan rubbed his nose and watched as the father and daughter walked further and further away. Then, he punched the wall in frustration. It turned out that he was the one who was really insensitive. He had almost done something bad out of good intentions. Zongguang brought Xue Qin to the manor in a hurry. The Jiao village was not far from the manor, but it still took them a lot of time on their two legs. When the two of them arrived outside the manor, Zongguang saw Madame Wan standing at the entrance with a worried and resentful expression. Zongguang had a bad feeling. He quickly took a few steps forward and asked, "Why are you standing here? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 7:11. Something big happened when Madame Wan saw him coming over. She quickly took 2 steps forward and said, "Why are you only back now? Let me tell you, something big has happened." "What is it?" Zongguang's heart skipped a beat. Madame Wan did not notice his expression.
She only pointed in the direction of the orchard and said, "Two people actually came to steal herbs in broad daylight and were caught. However, they killed Big Black. Master and Miss are interrogating them now."
They killed Big Black?
Shui Zongguang's face instantly darkened. Although Big Black was not raised by him, he had watched it grow up. That dog looked fierce but was very protective of its master.
He did not expect it to be killed by two thieves.
He could not care less about his legs that were a little weak from rushing. He wiped his sweat and turned to walk towards the orchard. Unexpectedly, he had only taken a step when he heard Madame Wan's noisy voice behind him.
"Qiner, what's wrong with your face? Who beat you up? Mother will avenge you."
Just now, Madame Wan only saw her husband and daughter return. With something on her mind, she did not pay attention to Xue Qin. It was only then that he realized that Xue Qin had been covering her face. Once she let go, the clear 5-finger mark on her face was simply terrifying. Madame Wan was furious on the spot. Xue Qin looked at Xue Zongguang with some complaints, which reminded Xue Zongguang of what the mother and daughter had done. He immediately said impolitely, "I did." Madame Wan was shocked, but when she saw Xue Zongguang's fierce expression, she was a little afraid. Xue Zongguang snorted coldly. "Bring her back and boil an egg for her face. Then lock her in the room and don't let her out. At least, keep her in the room until master leaves." "Father!" Xue Zongguang ignored her and warned Madame Wan, "You'd better listen to me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude and chasing you and your daughter out." Madame Wan wanted to retort, but she didn't dare to. She hurriedly nodded. I understand." As she spoke, she went over to pull Xue Qin. Ignoring her dissatisfaction, she forcefully brought her into the manor. Only then did Xue Zongguang turn around and run in the direction of the orchard. Before she could walk in, she heard a commotion and vaguely heard Yuan Cheng's suppressed cries. Xue Zongguang's heart ached as he quickened his pace. Indeed, there were many people standing in the middle of the herb orchard surrounded by fruit trees. Other than Shao Qingyuan, Gu Yundong, and the others, there were also many tenants who looked murderous. There were two people lying on the ground in the middle. Their bodies were firmly tied with ropes. It seemed that they were the two thieves. Yuan Cheng's face was covered in tears, and he looked extremely sad. There was a mess of blood at his feet, and it looked a little shocking. Xue Zongguang's gaze finally landed on Big Black, who was lying on the ground. He was slightly stunned. Big Black was not dead. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief and blamed his wife for exaggerating. However, although Big Black was not dead, it was indeed injured. The blood on the ground was from it. Now that it was on the ground, it looked like it was on the verge of death. It looked like it was in pain and he did not know if it could be saved. It must have been smeared with medicine, but its limbs still twitched from time to time. Gu Yundong squatted on the ground and gently stroked its head, as if to comfort it. Xue Zongguang walked forward and asked a tenant beside him, "What exactly happened?" The tenant's face was also filled with anger. He pointed at the two bandits and said, "These two animals deserve to be struck by lightning. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 7:12. Almost dead, the tenant said. "These two animals took a fancy to the medicinal herbs in our herb orchard and wanted to secretly come and pick them. However, the herb orchard was guarded by Big Black and the other two big dogs. They knew that they couldn't succeed easily, so they used despicable methods. The two thieves clearly had a plan. One deliberately lured Yuan Cheng and the dogs away from the herb garden. Then, the other one came in to steal the herbs. However, who knew that even though Yuan Cheng and the two dogs had left, Big Black was still guarding and unwilling to leave? The little thief was determined, but with Big Black around, he did not dare to approach. Big Black was too ferocious. When a dog barked, it could make people pee their pants. However, although Big Black was fierce, it was not a dog that would easily hurt people. It was mainly used to intimidate thieves and scare people. Until now, it had never bitten anyone. Therefore, it only cried out to warn the little thief to leave quickly and use its cries to attract others. However, the closest place to the herb orchard was the manor. Xue Zongguang, who was in the manor, took Gu Yundong to the Zhao village and was not at home. Moreover,
Madame Wan was a person who was especially insensitive to the barking of dogs. She only felt that Big Black was going crazy again and did not want to go over to take a look. The other tenants heard the faint barks and rushed over, but it took time. Seeing that Big Black did not pounce on him and bite him, the little thief could roughly tell that something was wrong. He immediately ignored it and went to pluck the herbs. After plucking 2 herbs, he completely angered Big Black. It suddenly jumped up and pushed the little thief to the ground. However, even though it had pounced on him, it did not bite him. It only pressed down on his shoulder to stop him. However, Big Black did not know that the little thief below had come prepared. He immediately drew his knife and stabbed at Big Black. Big Black had been cut 3 times. 1 in the abdomen, 1 in the face, and 1 in the leg. The injury on its leg was the most serious. The cut on its face ran from its forehead to its mouth. The scratch was a little deep. If it was slightly off, it would blind its eyes. Gu Yundong looked at the wound and the anger in her heart rose bit by bit. She could not stop it. Big Black was very sensitive. It seemed to have sensed her emotions. It raised its head slightly and whimpered. As it moved, blood gushed out of its wound. Gu Yundong quickly restrained her expression and gently touched it. "Don't move. It's good medicine." She knew nothing about how to treat its injuries and could only touch it gently. The medicine on the wound was given by Shao Qingyuan, and it was very effective. Although Shao Qingyuan had some medical knowledge, Big Black was not a human after all. Other than treating its wound and spreading medicinal powder, he did not know where to start. Yuan Cheng had taken care of Big Black since he was young. He had some experience, but he could also feel that Big Black was feeling very uncomfortable. He wiped his tears and cried especially hard. Fortunately, at this moment, a tenant ran over. "I brought the vet from the neighboring village over. Quick, let him take a look at Big Black." Yuan Cheng quickly moved aside. Gu Yundong also stood up and retreated. The vet immediately squatted down to check on Big Black's injuries. Gu Yundong clearly felt Big Black twitch. She turned her head slightly to avoid looking at it, but her gaze fell on the 2 thieves. The next moment, the anger on her face surfaced again. Not only did these 2 thieves want to kill Big Black, but they also didn't intend to let the other 2 dogs go. The food used to lure Big Yellow and the others away was smeared with poison, and they would die on the spot if they took a bite. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. After a while, they slowly opened their mouths and spat out a mouthful of blood and teeth. Gu Yundong stomped her feet and took another step forward. She didn't say anything. She rubbed her right wrist slightly. After the 2 of them sat up, she punched one of them heavily in the stomach. She swung her hand back fiercely at the other person's head, grabbed his hair, and slammed him to the ground. The tenants took a deep breath. What a cruel method. Zongguang felt a chill on his neck. Only Zhu and Tong Shui Tao were very calm. They were both people who had seen the world. This was just a small matter. Gu Yundong clapped her hands and stood up. The 2 thieves had only been hit twice and could no longer sit up. The taste of blood filled their mouths, and their stomachs and heads hurt terribly. She looked up at Gu Yundong with narrowed eyes. It was as if she was looking at a female devil. It made people feel as if their lives were in danger at any moment. Gu Yundong looked down at them and asked, "Who's the mole? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 7:14. They are together the mole? Everyone looked at each other. Only the 2 people's eyes flickered, and a trace of shock flashed past their eyes. Zongguang quickly took 2 steps forward. "Aunt Miss, what do you mean by the mole? There's no insider? How can you be so well prepared for your first time stealing?" Gu Yundong sneered. "No, it's not enough. It seems that the insider doesn't know this place very well, but it's definitely not just you. Where are your accomplices?" The 2 of them immediately denied it. However, they had just lost their teeth and their words were a little blurred. "Don't have an insider. No others. I don't know what you're doing." You're still not crying after seeing the coffin. Then let me see if your bones are really so hard. As Gu Yundong spoke, a cruel smile appeared on his face. The two of them instantly felt their scalps tingle. They had yet to understand what she meant. Gu Yundong suddenly kicked the two of them to the ground. Then, she stepped on one of their ankles and crushed them ruthlessly. Ah! A shrill cry like a pig being slaughtered sounded, piercing one's eardrums. Even Big Black, who was receiving treatment not far away, could not help but tremble. Gu Yundong frowned and said to Zhu, "Shut him up." "All right." Zhu stuffed the cloth ball into his gaping mouth. Then, he looked at the other person and asked, "Miss, do we need to shut up this person first?" Gu Yundong looked at him. The man looked at his companion's broken leg in shock. He finally understood what Gu Yundong meant. He was afraid. This woman looked weak and easy to bully, but she was more ferocious than any man present. She seemed to dare to do anything. This time, she had broken his companion's foot. Was she going to break his hand next? His life was more important. When the man saw that Zhu was really going to gag him after Gu Yundong nodded, the pain in his body instantly magnified infinitely. He hurriedly shouted, "I'll tell everything. Don't hit me." Gu Yundong let go of his leg and walked to the other person, ignoring the fact that he had fainted. "Speak." "Yes, it's Dr. Liu. We're in cahoots with Dr. Liu. Dr. Liu should be in Jiao village now." Everyone was stunned when they heard that. The tenants present all knew Dr. Liu. They had always felt that he was a very kind person who treated people for free. Only Zongguang, who had just returned from the Jiao village and already knew Dr. Liu's true appearance, came to a realization. So it was him. Yes, Dr. Liu had been here for 3 days. Although he had never entered the orchard and herb garden, he had walked around the periphery and knew about the existence of Big Black and the others. He also learned some things from the tenants. Therefore, he only knew a little. These two people took advantage of the time when Dr. Liu had lured Shao Qingyuan and Zongguang away from the Jiao village to steal the herbs in the herb garden. Gu Yundong knew what she wanted to know and also beat them up. Although she was still angry, she stopped. She clapped her hands and got Zhu to cover his mouth again. Then she said to Zongguang, "Send them to the officials." A tenant immediately said, "No, it won't be a crime even if they're sent to the government." They actually wanted to beat them up one by one. At the very least, they wanted them to suffer and learn a lesson. However, they were beaten up so badly now. If they attacked again, would they kill them? Gu Yundong laughed. Since he's Dr. Liu's accomplice, he will definitely be convicted. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 7:15. Sneaking Zongguang. Gu Yundong ignored the two of them and asked Zhu to send them to the officials with the tenants. She walked back to the herb garden. Shao Qingyuan turned to look at her. "Are you done venting? Does your hand hurt?" As he spoke, he took out a bottle of ointment. This ointment has the effect of reducing swelling, bruises, and pain. Apply it first. When Zongguang, who followed them out, heard this, his face could not help but twitch. Gu Yundong did not take the ointment. "It's fine. There's no need to apply it. How's Big Black?" "Fortunately, his life is not in danger." The vet wiped the sweat off his forehead and sighed. "But the injury on his leg is a little serious. I'm afraid he won't be able to walk smoothly in the future." Gu Yundong squatted in front of Big Black again. Perhaps it understood the vet's words, but the light in its eyes slowly dimmed. The fur around its wound had been shaved off, making it look a little strange. After the veterinarian treated Big Black, he asked someone to carry the wooden board with Big Black on it to the farmstead. Gu Yundong looked at it lying there and felt depressed. After a long time, she returned to the manor with Shao Qingyuan. Zongguang got someone to clean up the herb orchard before hurriedly following. However, as soon as he entered the courtyard, he rushed towards the room where the three of them lived. After entering the house, Zongguang did not have time to wipe his sweat, and he rummaged around in the cabinet. After a while, he took out a key and opened the box. He took out a small paper bag. Then,
He took a small paper bag into the small kitchen not far away and brought over the kettle that was boiling on the stove. He poured 2 glasses of water. He was in a hurry, and there was sweat on his forehead as if he was too nervous. This made Tong Shui Tao, who was about to enter the kitchen, feel especially strange. She kept feeling that the steward of this manor was acting suspiciously and definitely had evil intentions. Therefore, Tong Shui Tao quietly hid outside the kitchen and stared at him. Shui Zongguang did not realize it. After he poured the water, he felt that something was missing. A moment later, he patted his head, opened the cupboard, and took out a small porcelain jar. There was white sugar in the small porcelain jar. Shui Zongguang poured some into the cup. Finally, he took out the small paper bag from his sleeve. After opening it, he gritted his teeth and shook it all into one of the cups. Tong Shui Tao, who was outside the door, widened her eyes in shock. What did this Shui guy want to do? Could it be that he planned to pour 2 cups of tea for young Master Shao and his daughter? Tong Shui Tao was so angry that her face turned red. As expected, he was not a good person. The stuff in that paper bag must be poison. Was he trying to poison mist to make way for his daughter? No, that wasn't right. He would have to go to jail even if he poisoned his master. He must have wanted to paralyze her. Tong Shui Tao pursed her lips tightly. Seeing that Shui Zongguang was about to come out, she quickly turned around and hid. She would personally expose his scheme in front of young Miss and young Master later. Tong Shui Tao snorted and carefully followed behind Shui Zongguang. Then, Shui Zongguang walked out of the kitchen but did not go to the central room. Instead, he went in another direction. Finally, he stopped at the door of a room and knocked on the door with a cup of tea. Footsteps quickly came from inside, followed by Madame Wan's face. Father, why are you here? Madame Wan asked softly. Is everything all right in the herb garden? Shui Zongguang shook his head. Everything is fine now. Then he looked at Shui Qin, who was still angry, sitting on the edge of the bed and sighed slightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 716. You killed her? When Shui Qin saw him enter, she snorted coldly and turned her body to the side, not even looking at him. Shui Zongguang's heart ached when he saw that the finger marks on her face had not disappeared. After putting the teacup on the table, he said softly, Qiner, it's my fault today. I shouldn't have hit you. Humph. Shui Qin's expression softened a little when she heard her father, who had always been domineering, apologize to her. Madame Wan also hurriedly said, All right. There's no overnight grudge between father and daughter. Qiner is also in the wrong. Let's let this matter pass. Let's not mention it anymore. Shui Qin wanted to say that she was not in the wrong. So what if she admired her master? When she became her master's concubine in the future, her family would rise with the tide. She was doing this for her parents' own good. However, Madame Wan kept winking at her. She also knew that now was not the time to push her luck. She had to take it slow to change her father's mind. Hence, she nodded softly. I don't blame father either. It's good that you don't blame me. Shui Zongguang handed her a cup. This is sugar water. Take it as my apology. Drink it and show that you forgive me, okay? Okay. Shui Qin thought that her father still doted on her after all. Otherwise, why would he make such precious sugar water for her to drink? Hence, she became more confident in persuading him and marrying her master in the future. She was happy and drank the sugar water in one go. However, not long after she finished drinking, she suddenly felt a little dizzy and her eyelids were heavy. After a while she said uncontrollably, Father, Mother, I want to sleep for a while. As soon as she finished speaking, she fell onto the bed. Ah! Madame Wan was shocked and quickly pushed her. Qiner, what's wrong? What are you shouting for? Shui Zongguang glared at her and took away the cup that Shui Qin had left on the bed. Madame Wan was stunned. Seeing that he was not worried at all and was still moving slowly, she thought of the cup of sugar water just now. What else did she not understand? She looked at him in disbelief. You killed her? She's our only daughter. How dare you kill her? Madame Wan was no longer afraid of him. She rushed up and wanted to fight him to the death.
Shui Zongguang turned to the side. All right, what's with the fuss? Who killed her? She just drank some calming tea and fell asleep. Look carefully. Madame Wan was stunned and quickly reached out to check under Shui Qin's nose. As expected, her daughter was still breathing, and she immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she looked at her husband resentfully. What are you doing? Why did you give her some calming tea for no reason? What else?
Should we wait for her to go to young master's place in the middle of the night and do something shameless?
Madame Wan was shocked, and her expression instantly became unnatural.
Her husband indeed knew their daughter very well.
Just before Shui Zongguang came, Shui Qin was indeed trying her best to persuade her to help her fulfill her wish. After all, this was a rare opportunity. If young master left tomorrow, he might never come again. Madame Wan was not an opinionated person and was almost convinced. Unexpectedly, Shui Zongguang decided to take drastic measures and let her sleep until tomorrow morning. Shui Zongguang snorted. Why are you still standing here? Go to the kitchen and make dinner. Madame Wan left dejectedly. Only then did Shui Zongguang look at Shui Qin, who was lying unconscious on the bed. He sighed slightly, covered her with a blanket, and left the room, locking the door behind him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 480. Chapter 480. Hooking his neck with one hand, Sylvan Chaney and Jasmine Yale walked a long while on Maple Mountain. Jasmine was lost in the enchanting scenery and didn't feel tired at all. It was truly beautiful. Do you want to see more? If you do, I can have lunch brought over, Sylvan asked for her thoughts. Jasmine shook her head. Let's go back. I want to return to my rental. She hadn't been back to that little cottage in a long time. It was unclear when Pei En would be able to return. The place was lonely and deserted. Don't go back there. I bought you an apartment in the city center. It's convenient to go anywhere, Sylvan proposed. I don't want it. She shook her head again. She truly did not want anything from Sylvan Chaney. She did not want his compensations. If she wanted an apartment, she could save up for it herself. Though it would take many years, it gave her a sense of security. You reject everything I offer. Are you trying to cut all ties with me? Accept what I give you. Sylvan's face darkened with displeasure. I can buy my own house. I used to earn quite a lot in Singapore. I'll save up slowly and eventually buy a house, Jasmine replied, her eyes wide. Buy it yourself? Fine, buy it yourself, Sylvan retorted angrily, his face soured. He knew this girl was stubborn. But he hadn't expected her to reject everything he offered. It wasn't just the house, but the bracelet he had gifted her before as well. In those 12 years, she rarely ever asked him for anything. Even buying a box of candy needed much consideration. He had said that he would give her anything she wanted. But she never asked him for anything. The feeling was far from pleasant. What use was it for him to earn all that money? Jasmine Yale was unclear about why he was angry, and casually said, I find girls like Nolan quite good. She's from a well-off family, she is beautiful, and still works hard. That's because Zayden Santos would leave her one day, replied Sylvan sharply. Jasmine was taken aback. Why? Then why did they decide to get married in the first place? Mr. Chaney, your friend is quite despicable, Jasmine complained, infuriated. Birds of a feather flock together? You and Nolan are close? No. If not, what does An have to do with you? Sylvan was visibly infuriated. She would rather show concern for someone she just met than engage in conversation with him. Jasmine was speechless and stopped pressing further. She too was somewhat angered. Why was Sylvan Chaney yelling at her when she hadn't said anything wrong? She knew he had a bad temper. Frustrated, she walked down the mountain. Not caring that it was still snowing, she went directly into the snow. The icy snowflakes landed on her face, but she didn't find it cold. Just a little tired. Spoiled, muttered Sylvan as he opened his umbrella and advanced towards her with large strides. Upon reaching her, he handed her the umbrella. Hold this. The next second, he scooped her into his arms. Hey! Jasmine was taken by surprise. Put me down. Hold on tight. If you fall, I won't take responsibility. I can walk by myself. After walking so much, aren't you tired? Not tired, Jasmine lied. In truth, she was a bit tired, coupled with her menstruation ongoing. But she never thought that Sylvan would carry her down the mountain. Even during those 12 years, he had never once carried her. For a moment, Jasmine was dazed. Even if you're not tired, I won't let you walk anymore, Sylvan spoke indifferently. With one hand around his neck and the other holding the umbrella, Jasmine was halfway in his arms. Shielded from the snowflakes by the large umbrella, it was calm and undisturbed. When she was close to him, she could clearly smell his scent, discreet and deep. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 7:18. Abandoned. Young master, this is for you. Zhu wiped its mouth and handed it to Shao Qingyuan. Then, it looked at him expectantly. Shao Qingyuan didn't think much of it at first. After accepting it and taking a closer look, he exclaimed, "Where did you get it?" "I found it in Dr. Liu's medicine basket." Zhu chuckled. The medicine basket was sent to the government office as physical evidence. As expected, the county magistrate found a doctor to examine it. However, the doctor only flipped through the top 2 layers of herbs and confirmed that they were useless weeds. There might be some herbs mixed in, but they were not worth much. Then, the county magistrate convicted Dr. Liu and asked them to sign on the documents. The matter was resolved. As for the medicine basket, it was filled with useless grass that would rot in a day or two, so the county office servants planned to pour it as garbage. Zhu saw that there was actually a herb under the herb basket. He had been by Shao Qingyuan's side for so long and more or less knew some of herbs. He immediately brought the herb back. "I'm not sure either. It just looks like it." "Young master, is this the Hongming you mentioned?" Shao Qingyuan nodded. "Yes, I didn't expect him to dig up a treasure." Hongming. Gu Yundong felt that this herb sounded familiar. Shao Qingyuan said, "These are the medicinal herbs recorded in the medical book Dr. Song gave me. They are mainly used for clearing the eyes." In that case, it was also a very precious medicinal herb? Shao Qingyuan put it away and praised, "Not bad, you deserve praise." Zhu's eyes lit up and she quickly buried his head in his food. That night, the few of them rested in the manor before preparing to leave the next day. Gu Yundong frowned slightly when she saw Big Black lying on the ground. After a night of recuperation, Big Black looked much better. It had a strong recovery ability and used good medicine. It had already tried to stand up. However, just as the vet had said, Big Black's leg was too injured to land on the ground. It would probably limp in the future. "I want to go to the Yuan family and tell Yuan Cheng about Big Black." "All right, I'll go with you." Gu Yundong asked Tong Shui Tao and the others to prepare the carriage and wait at the door while she and Shao Qingyuan walked towards the Yuan residence. The Yuan family was not far from the manor. It did not take long for the two of them to approach the entrance of the Yuan family. However, before the two of them could knock on the door, they heard Yuan Cheng's familiar voice from inside. "I don't agree. I want to keep Big Black. Even if it can only retire at home in the future, I won't abandon it." Gu Yundong was surprised and could not help but look at Shao Qingyuan. Immediately after, another sigh came from the courtyard. From the sound of it, it might be Yuan Cheng's father. "Ah Cheng, can you not be so stubborn? I know you have a good relationship with Big Black, but it's already crippled. It won't be able to walk steadily in the future. It definitely won't be able to guard that orchard like Big Yellow and the others to scare off the thieves. However, it eats a lot. We can't afford to keep it anymore. The owner has given us money. Why can't we afford it?" Father Yuan frowned. "The owner did give you money, but don't you only have 2 dogs now? How can 2 dogs be enough in such a big herb garden? You definitely have to raise another one. Won't this Big Black eat and drink for free? In the past, it could enter the back mountain to hunt some wild chickens and rabbits, but now, do you think it can do it? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 719. Sorry, Mother Yuan immediately made the decision. It's not like we don't want Big Black anymore. We're just sending it away for someone else to raise. Can't you just bring another dog back and nurture it? Your aunt has already said that Big Black can go to her house. Yuancheng suddenly raised his voice. Nonsense. Why are you looking at the house? Mother, you clearly know that Cousin Wei Kai was so frightened by Big Black in the past that he peed his pants. He hates Big Black to the core and wants to beat it to death with a stick every time he sees it. You even sent Big Black to eldest Dan's house. Let me tell you, if you send it over today, they will eat Big Black tomorrow. What are you saying? How rude. Your uncle is not such a person. Yuancheng only sneered. Gu Yundong could not take it anymore. She raised her head and knocked on the door twice. Yuancheng did not move, and Mother Yuan was also angry. Only Father Yuan sighed and came over to open the door. Seeing the two people standing outside the door, he was immediately stunned. He hurriedly retreated half of his body and said, "Boss, why are you here? Quick, come in." Yuancheng and Mother Yuan suddenly came back to their senses and hurriedly welcomed them. They took stools and made tea. But Gu Yundong stopped them. "There's no need. We're here to ask your family for your opinion." The three members of the Yuan family were stunned for a moment. "Miss, please speak." "It's like this. Big Black was injured yesterday to protect the herb garden. Now that its legs are inconvenient, I'm afraid it can't continue to stay in the herb orchard in the future." When Yuancheng heard this, he immediately felt a little desperate. Even Lady Gu had said so. Was she planning to give up on Big Black? Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong's next sentence made his eyes light up. "No matter what, Big Black is a hero. We're really touched by its actions. Now that it's crippled, we can't ignore it. So, we want to take it away. What do you think?" Yuancheng was stunned and asked anxiously, "Take it away? Where to?" "Of course, I'm bringing it home." Gu Yundong did not have this plan at first because Big Black had grown up here. It had a good relationship with Big Yellow and the others, and it had a deep relationship with Yuancheng. It would not be appropriate to bring it away. However, after hearing the Yuan family's words just now, she thought that nothing good would happen if Big Black continued to stay. Gu Yundong liked Big Black very much. She felt that perhaps it would be good to bring it back to Yongfu village. Yuancheng could not bear to leave. He had always slept with Big Black in the past. He was the saddest when something happened to Big Black. However, he was worried that he couldn't protect Big Black. His parents didn't want to keep it anymore, and Big Black was injured. What if his cousin hit it with a stick again? He was afraid that when he came home one day, Big Black would be sent away or beaten to death. Then, he would definitely regret it. Hence, when he heard Gu Yundong's request and recalled the scene of her interacting with Big Black yesterday, she gritted her teeth and nodded. "Okay." Father and Mother Yuan naturally wouldn't say anything. Although eldest aunt really wanted to take Big Black away, the person who wanted the dog now was the boss. Their family was working for the boss, so they couldn't refuse at all. Since they had agreed, Gu Yundong did not stay any longer and left the Yuan residence with Shao Qingyuan. Yuancheng followed them out. When they arrived at the manor, he ran to see Big Black first. When Big Black was carried onto the carriage by Tong Shui Tao, he cried even harder. "I'm sorry. I'm useless. I can't even protect you. You'll definitely lead a better life with the boss in the future. You have to be obedient. The boss will take good care of you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 720. Find you a wife. Big Black was very intelligent. It seemed to understand Yuancheng's words. It immediately wanted to stand up, but Yuancheng stopped her. "If there's a chance in the future, I'll visit you. You have to be fine, understand?" Big Black whimpered, then barked. Each bark was louder and more excited. Its eyes were filled with anxiety, sadness, and uneasiness. Yuancheng immediately cried in grief. "Don't be like this. I've let you down." Tong Shui Tao was also extremely sad as she watched from the side. She wiped her tears. For a moment, Gu Yundong felt that she was the evil person who had separated them. Her heart was in a mess. After a while, she went forward and patted Big Black's head. "Don't worry. I'll bring you over when you've recovered to meet your friends can do it." Big Black liked her very much. It was very sensitive to the kindness of the human in front of it. Hence, he whimpered twice and stopped. Yuan Cheng said a lot more to it and hugged it reluctantly for a while. By the time the group set off, it was already past dawn. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were in a carriage. Big Black was also lying in the carriage, but it looked a little listless. Gu Yundong spoke to it. "All right, don't be unhappy. When we reach Yongfu village, I'll find you a wife. How about that?" Shao Qingyuan. No one knew if Big Black understood her or not, but it raised its eyes slightly to look at her. Gu Yundong chuckled, her expression somewhat wretched. As they set off late, they took a detour back from the farmstead. In addition, Big Black was injured, so the carriage slowed down a lot. Therefore, when they arrived at Fengkai County, it was already the morning of the second day. Gu Yundong wanted to go back as soon as possible, so she did not delay in the county. However, when she passed by the entrance of Gus, she still stopped and lifted the curtain to look into the shop. Zhuangzi was not around. It was unknown if he had gone to the backyard or elsewhere. Only Chen Jinkai was busy in the shop. He was quite diligent. Even if there were no customers and the shopkeeper was not around, he did not stop to rest for a while. He took a cloth to wash and wipe things seriously. Jiang Bao, the shop assistant in the pharmacy next door, was also very diligent. He was pounding the medicine with a pestle, shaking his head happily. It was probably because he had just gotten engaged to Zhuangzi's sister, Lan Huaer, not long ago. The two shops looked fine. Gu Yundong was relieved and asked Tong Shui Tao to drive the carriage back. After entering Yongfu village, Gu Yundong suddenly felt like she was eager to return home. Beside him, Big Black perked up a little. Its ears twitched, as if it was listening to the sounds outside. Gu Yundong smiled and said, "This is where you will live in the future. When your legs are better in the future, you can go to the mountains to take a look. Behind our house is the foot of the mountain. It's very convenient." Big Black turned its head and glanced at her. After entering the village, the carriage slowed down. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain and looked out. She saw a mother and son walking in front of her. Hearing the sound of the carriage, the two of them quickly stood to the side. Just as the carriage passed by them, Gu Yundong suddenly heard one of them say something. "I've already told you that it's too late to come to the Gu family workshop today." Gu family workshop? Gu Yundong was not the only one. Tong Shui Tao, who was driving the carriage, also slowed down and listened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 721. You have to control yourself. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain at the back of the carriage and looked out. The two of them did not care when they saw the carriage slow down. They only thought that it was because the village road was too narrow that the carriage was moving slowly. They didn't look like they were from Yongfu village, so they didn't know Tong Shui Tao and the others. However, she lowered her voice. "Then the Gu family workshop was recruiting yesterday. If we come today, they definitely won't want you anymore. Tell me, why did you specially make a trip? You're so tired." The woman who spoke looked a few years older than Madame Yang. The person walking beside her should be her son. He looked fair and refined, but his body was a little thin. From what they said, they were applying for jobs at the Gu family's workshop. However, this young man did not look like he was good at work. It was as if he could not even lift a bucket of water. When the youth heard his mother's words, he was a little annoyed. "Mother, that's enough. I've already said that if you heard that the Gu family was recruiting again, you should have told me earlier. However, you just had to hide it from me. If you had told me yesterday, would we have missed this opportunity?" The woman was a little dissatisfied. "What's there to tell you? Why don't you take a look at your own status? You're an elementary scholar and you're knowledgeable. In the future, you'll take the high scholar examination and become an official. You're not studying at home for no reason, but you have to come to a small workshop in the village to find work. Have you become stupid from studying?" Gu Yundong was surprised. He was actually a scholar? And an elementary scholar?
It was not that Gu Yundong looked down on her own workshop, but based on the current situation, her small workshop should not be able to attract a scholar to work, right? Gu Yundong was a little confused and could not help but take a few more glances at the young man. However, before she could take a closer look, a pair of hands suddenly appeared in front of her and blocked her vision. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment before she heard Shao Qingyuan's deep voice. Is he very good-looking? Huh? The voice was very close, and it sounded like he was gritting his teeth. Gu Yundong could clearly hear the jealousy in his tone. For some reason, she was in a good mood. She pulled his hand down, her eyes crinkling with laughter. Not as good-looking as you. Shao Qingyuan's body suddenly froze. A wave of frustration surged up, making his throat go dry. He suddenly reached back with one hand to cover the big black eyes that were curiously turning in his direction. His other hand wrapped around Gu Yundong's waist and pulled her tightly into his arms. Gu Yundong was surprised. The next moment, she felt a warmth in her ear and was gently bitten. She suddenly shuddered, and the blood in her body instantly boiled. F***ck, this man. However, Shao Qingyuan had already let go of her. He turned his head and said to Tong Shui Tao, "Hurry up." The carriage arrived at a spacious place and sped up in an instant. Shao Qingyuan turned around and met Gu Yundong's shining gaze. He coughed lightly and felt a little uncomfortable. I'm just reciprocating. If he was jealous, so be it. To hell with reciprocating. Gu Yundong snorted and reached out to rub his face. You have to control yourself. I'm not of marriageable age yet. Shao Qingyuan was speechless. You were the one who kissed me first. However, he smiled and said, you'll be coming of age next month. You'll be fine then? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 722. The Nest of the Bedham? Next month? So soon? Gu Yundong was in a daze when she realized that time had passed in a flash. She had been in Yongfu village for almost a year. Miss, we're home. Tong Shui Tao's voice came from outside. Gu Yundong looked up at Shao Qingyuan, who was still waiting for her answer. He chuckled and jumped off the carriage. Help me carry Big Black in. Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but laugh. He was actually a little resentful that time had passed too slowly. He felt that it was too cold when he built such a big house. He only lacked a mistress at home. If only they could get married as soon as possible. He got out of the carriage and carried Big Black down. Tong Ping had already told them about Gu Yundong's return, so Madame Tong and her daughter-in-law had already prepared the room. The moment Gu Yundong entered, she instantly felt relaxed. She put away the things she had brought from the prefectural city. When she saw Shao Qingyuan carrying Big Black in, she immediately got busy making a nest for it. Father Tong wanted to take over, but Big Black had just arrived at an unfamiliar place and was still uneasy. His entire body was on guard, and he kept shrinking back. Gu Yundong could only let Father Tong go out first, indicating that she could do it with Shao Qingyuan. Currently, the conditions were limited. Gu Yundong wanted to make a simple nest for it to live in. Later, she would find a carpenter to build a wooden house for Big Black. No matter what, it would be a member of the family in the future. They had to take good care of it. Shao Qingyuan looked at Big Black enviously. He also wanted a nest, the kind of nest that was already a bed. He turned around and went out to get the big basket. There seemed to be one in the backyard. He should be able to use it for Big Black to sleep for the time being. He had just walked out of the door when he saw Tongan rushing over. When he heard that Gu Yundong was back, he hurried over to report his work. However, before she could step through the door, she heard a voice from outside. Is this the Gu family? We're here to look for work. Shao Qingyuan immediately guessed that it was the mother and son from before. He immediately said to Tongan, go and take a look. If they're not suitable, just send them away. Tongan was stunned. He subconsciously turned around and left. However, after taking a few steps, he felt that something was amiss. Why did it sound like young Master Shao really hoped that the person who came was not suitable? However, Tongan also felt that it was inappropriate. He had already released the news about the recruitment the day before yesterday.
It had already ended yesterday. The other party had only arrived today, making people feel that they did not take him seriously. Tong An's first impression was not good, but he did not expect the other party to be an elementary scholar. After all, talents were rare. The workshop was filled with farmers, and there were not many who could read. The other party was an elementary scholar, so Tong felt that he could still consider the application appropriately. If the man really stayed, the workshop might be able to attract more well-educated people in the future. Gu Yundong naturally heard that cry, but she did not care. It was agreed that the first round of recruitment would be handed over to Tong En, even if the other party was a knowledgeable elementary scholar. She did not intend to interfere. If the elementary scholar passed Tong An's assessment, Gu Yundong would just have to wait and see. She only took the basket from Shao Qingyuan. This basket was very big and not tall. Even with big black size, it could completely fit in. Gu Yundong had placed an old and unused blanket and some clothes under it. They were all clean and soft. She stretched out her hand and tested it. When she felt that it was okay, she let Big Black in. Unexpectedly, a sharp cry suddenly came from outside. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 723. Do you not have a mouth? Why don't you want my son? My son is an elementary scholar. He's knowledgeable and capable. If you want those bumpkins, why can't you want my son? The woman's voice was a little loud. Tongan did not expect her to suddenly become so agitated. He immediately wanted the two of them to leave, but the woman had already shouted inside, Boss Gu, quickly come out, right? You manager is not good people. He's afraid that my son is an elementary scholar who has the ability to snatch his position. He actually doesn't allow my son to come to the workshop to work. My son is an elementary scholar. An elementary scholar. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and shrugged helplessly. Let's go out and take a look. Tongan was furious. He had really underestimated the mother and son. This woman actually sat on the ground and did not leave. He immediately wanted to get someone to chase them out, but Gu Yundong had already come out. She glanced at the madam sitting on the ground, then at the fair youth, and suddenly laughed. Your mother is sitting on the ground. Aren't you going to help her? The young man looked a little embarrassed. He quickly went forward and wanted to help the woman up. The woman snorted and looked at Gu Yundong. Who are you? I want to see Boss Gu. I am she. The woman was stunned. She had heard that the eldest daughter of the Gu family was in charge of the Gu family's workshop, but she did not expect to see such a weak-looking woman. Wasn't the boss supposed to be a tigress with a ferocious aura that could intimidate men? When the young man heard this, he helped his mother up even more anxiously. Mother, stop making a scene. The woman stood up unwillingly. Only then did Gu Yundong look at Tongan. What happened? Miss, this gentleman wants to work in the workshop. However, the conditions are a little high. Right after Tongan said that, he heard the woman's raised voice. How are the conditions high? My son is an elementary scholar. If he works here as an accountant, his monthly salary will only be 5 taels a month. How is that high? Boss Gu, don't listen to his nonsense. I think he treats my son as a threat to his position, so he rejects my son with an excuse. Gu Yundong waved her hand, as if she did not want to hear what the woman had to say. She looked at the young man and asked, Your mother said that you're an elementary scholar, right? That's right. Gu Yundong smiled. Since you're an elementary scholar, you're naturally knowledgeable. Why don't you go to the county city to find work? Even if you don't become a teacher in a rich family, those shops should want you, right? Why do you have to come to a small workshop like mine that has only been open for less than a year to be an accountant? This young man looked to be around 20 years old. He was already an elementary scholar at such a young age, which meant that he was indeed talented. The young man was still hesitating when the woman shouted again. Why? My son is just... Don't you have a mouth? You keep letting your mother answer questions for you? The woman was stunned, and a trace of embarrassment flashed across the young man's face. He quickly said, I heard that the Gu family's workshop has good benefits and high wages, so I came to look for work. Gu Yundong smiled and shook her head. No matter how good the benefits are, it's just a small workshop. If you don't want to tell the truth, you can leave. After saying that, she turned around and left. The young man immediately panicked. Wait. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 724. Whoever hires him is an idiot. Gu Yundong paused and turned to look at him. The young man tugged at his fingers. Independent Illinois, just tell the truth. I'd like to hear the details. The young man gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, although I'm an elementary scholar, I'm not good with words. Previously, I did want to go over and be a teacher, but I couldn't speak the moment I met a student. In the end, I could only give up. Later on, I went to the shops in the county city and thought of being a bookkeeper, but the salary given by those shops was too little. Then, I heard that the Gu family's workshop has good benefits and can even cover accommodation, so I wanted to come over and give it a try. Although I'm not very good at talking, my title as an elementary scholar is real. Don't worry about this. Gu Yundong lowered her eyes as she listened. When the young man was done, she nodded slightly. Yes, I understand. You can go back. What do you mean? Our workshop doesn't intend to hire you. The young man panicked. Why? I'm an elementary scholar. Gu Yundong found it funny. So what if he was an elementary scholar? Could it be that the title of an elementary scholar was a pass? Then why did he have to come to a small workshop like hers when he could not find work elsewhere? Because you're not the type of accountant I want? What type of accountant do you need? Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and glanced at the young man before turning to leave. The young man was indignant. Miss, can you make yourself clear? This time, Tongan no longer had any worries. He directly called out to Tong Shui Tao and asked her to carry the woman who wanted to sit on the ground and cry out. He also dragged the young man out of the Gu family. There were still people watching the commotion at the entrance of the Gu residence. When they saw that the mother and son had been chased out, they quickly pointed at them. The woman was thick-skinned, but the young man could not take it. Although he was unwilling, he still fled a moment later. Tongan sneered and then ran to look for Gu Yundong. He was also a little puzzled. Miss, why didn't you hire that young man? Tongan didn't agree because the young man's gaze was very disdainful when he spoke to him. No matter how amiable he appeared, his arrogance was still extremely uncomfortable. Most of the long-term workers in the Gu family's workshop were farmers. If this elementary scholar continued to have such an attitude, he would probably cause a huge conflict with the people in the workshop. Tongan did not plan to hire this young man because of this consideration. However, when the young man saw the young lady, he was very humble and had a good attitude. He completely looked like he was following the young lady. However, Miss still chased him out without hesitation. Gu Yundong said as she fed Big Black, because I gave that young man 2 chances, and he was lying. He was not likable to begin with, and he even had a mother who was a burden. In the end, he was full of lies. Whoever hires him will be a fool. Lies. Gu Yundong left the house and said to Tong En, he's an elementary scholar. He's so young, which means that he has a bright future ahead of him. There are many wealthy families in our county. There must be some shrewd rich masters who are interested in his future and are more or less willing to bet on him. Even if he doesn't, if he goes to a shop to find work, there will be owners who are willing to hire him as accountant. Although 5 taels of silver a month is a lot, it's really too much. Moreover, there's still room for bargaining. I don't believe that he won't be able to find a job like this. Tongan was enlightened. Then why did he come to our workshop? I don't know if there's something wrong with him or if he has other motives. Gu Yundong sighed faintly. There was no choice. The tallest tree attracts the wind. Who asked her shop to be too popular? Even with Qin Wenzheng's protection, there were always people who wanted to find out. For example, the Xian residents. Go back and ask around. Yes. Tong An's entire body trembled, and he instantly felt that he had a heavy responsibility. Let's go. Bring me to the workshop first and tell me what happened at home during this period of time. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 725. Pregnant Gu Yundong went to wash her hands and asked Tong Shui Tao to take good care of Big Black. Shao Qingyuan also went back first. He had to deal with the herb that Zhu had brought him. When the people at the Gu family's entrance saw Gu Yundong come out, they wanted to go forward and say a few words. One of them wanted to work in the Gu family's workshop, but was rejected by Tong En. However, those who did not dare to retort loudly in front of Tong and did not dare to speak when they saw Gu Yundong. Hence, they could only watch as the two of them walked further and further away. As Tong En walked, he recounted everything that had happened in the past half a month. The two young masters are doing well in the school. A few days ago, young master got the top 3 in the test at the beginning of the month. Young master was extremely happy. He even said that if he gets first place the next time, he will be rewarded by the teacher. Young cousin master is also very hardworking in his studies. He has made great progress. He didn't say what rank Bien Yung got, so it shouldn't be too high. Gu Yundong knew this in her heart. After all, she had entered school late and had a weak foundation. To her, it was already a little difficult to keep up with the teacher's lecture. However, it's been very strange these past 2 days. Young master and young cousin master have been going into the kitchen and saying that they want to learn how to cook. No matter how we persuade them, they won't tell us the reason. Gu Yundong was surprised. Yunshu and Yuanji were going into the kitchen? What was going on? It seemed like she had to ask the 2 little ones properly after school. Everything is fine at home. Also, my sister-in-law is pregnant again. Gu Yundong stopped in her tracks and asked in surprise, "Really?" "Yes, she just saw a doctor yesterday. This is a joyous occasion. It's worth celebrating." The Tong family did not have many children. Tong Shui Tao was the only one in her generation. She was already so old this year and did not have any siblings. Tong'an had been hurt before, and others did not know if he would get married and have children in the future. Hence, wasn't it a joyous occasion for the Tong family to have a new member? Gu Yundong reckoned that when Little Peach found out, she would be overjoyed. After explaining the Gu family situation, Tong'an started talking about the people in Yongfu village. The Zhang family's days were getting better and better. Madame Dong's brothers, who had not been around much in the past, had also been especially diligent recently. Especially since the Gu family's workshop recruited workers yesterday. They had practically stayed in the Zhang family's house and refused to leave. Unfortunately, although Madame Dong did not have a strong personality, she was also a principled person. She knew what kind of people her brothers were. Introducing them to the workshop was to cause trouble for Gu Yundong. Because of this, Madame Dong's brothers scolded her for being a heartless ingrate. Now that she was rich, she forgot about her brothers and only thought about living a good life. She would be struck by lightning in the future. Then, Zhang Hu, who was already agile, chased them out with a stick. The Zhang family's life was indeed getting better and better. Zhang Hu and his wife were working in Gu Yundong's workshop. They did not have much land to begin with and had already rented it out. The couple worked hard and increased their wages. Zhang Jia had already gone to the private school in the neighboring village to study. According to Zhang Hu, he would send Zhang Lu over in 2 years. The private school did not have a high tuition fee. Although it was a little strenuous to provide for the 2 children, the Zhang family's life was getting better and better. It did not matter if it was a little tough. Zhang Yu was a girl and could not go to school. She helped out at home. However, Zhang Jia would teach her how to read every day when he returned from the private school. Zhang Yu was also hardworking and often came to the Gu family to ask Shen Sitian about embroidery. At the mention of Shen Sitian, Gu Yundong could not help but ask, "Where did she go? I haven't seen her since I came back." If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 726. Affection is gone. An unnatural look flashed across Tong An's face. Gu Yundong did not notice and continued to walk forward. Only then did Tong An take a few steps forward and say, "She went to the county city today to sell her embroidery work."
Really?
How's her embroidery sales these days?
Tong An quickly lowered his head and said softly, "Well, I'm not too sure." Gu Yundong nodded and did not ask further. After all, there were differences between men and women. It was indeed inappropriate for Tong An to ask too much about Shen Sishan's private matters. She changed her mind and asked about other things. Tong An exhaled slightly before continuing. The Zheng family was getting better and better now. It was said that they would renovate the house next year and plan to build 2 more rooms. At that time, they would give each of the children a room. Compared to the Zheng family, the Shi family had changed even more. Not only did the Shi couple manage the orchard for Gu Yundong, but they also earned a lot of money. Coupled with Zhuangzi, who was now the shopkeeper, the changes in the Shi family were visible to the naked eye. During this period of time, the Shi family had already been renovating the house. In addition, Lan Huar and Jiang Bao had just gotten engaged and were about to get married next year. However, Lan Huar did not have a proper boudoir of her own. The Shi couple wanted her to get married in a grand manner, so the first thing they renovated was Lan Huar's boudoir. Now that Lan Huar matter was settled, Zhuangzi was still alone. The Shi couple was very anxious. Their neighbors and friends stared at Zhuangzi as if he was fat meat. They wished they could tie him up and make him their son-in-law. This was a shopkeeper. He had become the head shopkeeper of a county shop at such a young age. He was too promising. Moreover, the Shi couple had a good personality and were not domineering. His sister-in-law was about to get married and they were even renovating the old house. Which woman would not enjoy life after marrying him? However, Zhuangzi was unwilling no matter what. He simply did not come back after his family said too much. During the past 10 days, he had been living in the county shop for half of the time. If there was anything, he would ask Chen Jinkai to help pass on a message. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry when she heard that. This was a career-type man, completely devoted to work. Speaking of Chen Jinkai, Tong An suddenly thought of something. Madame Fong even returned to Yongfu village and ran to the village chief's house to cause a scene. It could be said that she ruined her last relationship with the Chen family. What did she do? She said that Jiang Yongkong was not nice to her and scolded her every day. She asked the village chief to help divorce him. However, the village chief is in an awkward position right now. He's neither from Madame Fang's maternal family nor from her husband's family. Madame Fang is no longer a member of Yongfu village either. He couldn't care less about her, so he asked her to talk to her maternal family. Seeing that he was unwilling to help, Madame Fang cursed him for his lack of conscience and kept slandering him. In the end, Madame Zhou couldn't take it anymore and went up to slap Madame Fang twice. The two of them started fighting. Later on, for some reason, Madame Fang accidentally bumped into Chen Jinkai's 12-year-old son. His son's head hit the doorframe on the spot, scaring the entire family. Fortunately, the doctor said that it was nothing serious. Only then did the Chen family heave a sigh of relief. However, they had completely drawn a line with Madame Fang and would pretend not to know this person from now on. When Gu Yundong heard this, she sighed with emotion. The Fang family was really walking further and further down the path of courting death. As they spoke, the two of them had already arrived at the entrance of the Gu family's workshop. When she saw Gu Yundong enter, everyone in the workshop greeted her. They looked very happy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 727. Giving red packets. Increasing pay. Gu Yundong looked around and realized that although everyone was in good spirits, their bodies were indeed quite tired. She knew that everyone had been working hard recently. In order to keeping the supply in the shop, no one had rested. Gu Yundong was very touched by how much everyone had sacrificed for the workshop. Especially when she saw the inventory in the storeroom at the back, she was even more moved. Hence, after coming out, she said to everyone, "It's been hard on everyone during this period of time. In a few days, when new long-term workers are hired, everyone will be able to relax a little. To thank everyone for your hard work these days, I'll give everyone a red packet tomorrow to celebrate. Everyone,
Please don't find it small. Ah! The long-term workers in the workshop immediately cheered. Even the fatigue on their bodies was swept away. Boss, we don't mind if it's not too little. 1 copper coin is fine. Boss, it's not hard on us. We're so happy to be able to work in the workshop. That's right, boss. The food in this workshop is very good. I don't even want to go home. Boss, don't worry. We definitely won't let the supply in the shop break. Even if you open another shop, we can still provide it. That's right, that's right. The boss business is doing well. Everyone chimed in one after another, making it lively and willing. Gu Yundong felt a surge of warmth in her heart. These people always used the simplest language to express their sincerest feelings. They were really very cute. The smile on Gu Yundong's face widened. Thank you, everyone. You're all so capable. It would be unreasonable not to increase your salary. Whoosh! The excited voice was even louder than before. Compared to red packets, the increase in salary was naturally more exciting. Someone even shouted, "We can work for another 100 years." Gu Yundong staggered and almost lost her balance. She smiled at the person who spoke and shook her head before leaving. She had indeed gone back to prepare red packets and increase their salary. Actually, there had been an increase in wages before. Now, most of the people in the workshop earned 800 copper coins a month. The junior managers already had 1 tael of silver. The Zeng couple each had 1 tael of silver each. This time, the salary was raised to 1 tael for everyone else, and 2 taels for the junior managers. It could be considered an increase of 200 copper coins each. There were also red packets. 500 copper coins per person to buy delicious food for everyone. Gu Yundong asked Tong'en to prepare the money. She did not wait until the next day and distributed them that night. Not long after Tong'en left, Shin-Sitian returned. She did not look too good. Chapter 728. Difficulties. Shin-Sitian raised her head and looked at her serious expression. She actually felt like she wanted to rely on her. She was clearly older than Gu Yundong, but it didn't seem to be of much use. She lowered her head slightly and thought for a moment before saying in a low voice, "I've indeed encountered some difficulties recently." As she spoke, Shin-Sitian took out a set of embroidery from her bag. "I spent more than 2 months embroidering this. I thought I could sell it for a good price, but who knew? It was fine if the price was lowered again and again. At most, she would not sell this set. However, who knew that the cloth shop owners in the county city had communicated with each other and she could not sell her other embroidery work? Since that was the case, she went to town. However, the cloth shops in town were not very big. They wouldn't purchase her embroidery work and could only take on small things like handkerchiefs. If this continued, when would she be able to earn enough money to live alone outside? She couldn't possibly stay in the Gu family forever, right? Gu Yundong frowned. If she remembered correctly, most of the cloth shops in the county were run by the Peng family, right? To be able to unite several shops, it was most likely the shopkeeper of the Peng family. Peng Zhongfei was a scumbag himself, and his subordinates were not good people either. Gu Yundong could look for Peng Zhongfei, but she did not want to have anything to do with the Peng family. It was the same for Peng Zhongfei. After all, nothing good happened every time he saw her. Gu Yundong opened Shin-Sitian's embroidery and her eyes lit up. She was stunned. Such beautiful embroidery. Surely, it can be sold for a good price. Shin-Sitian thought so too. This was her hard work, but unfortunately, Gu Yundong looked at it again and again. He smiled and said, "Since the people in the county city don't know what's good for them, take them to the prefectural city." The prefectural city? Of course, if you don't go to the prefectural city, I can help you sell it. Gu Yundong said, "Anyway, I have a shop in the prefectural city now, so I have to go back and forth often. Even if I'm not free, Tong Ping and the others have to deliver goods to the shop from time to time. You can ask him to help bring your works over. With your skills, you don't have to worry about not being able to sell them." Shin-Sitian moved but said, "Will it be too much trouble for you?" "What trouble is there? It's just a matter of convenience. If you're afraid of trouble, just don't refuse when I ask you for help later." "Of course I won't refuse," Shin-Sitian quickly said. Isn't that enough? Sitian, I think you should embroider such big pieces in the future. They can be sold for a lot of money. They're much better than the ones you embroidered, such as pouches and handkerchiefs. Shen Sitian thought so too, but she had just arrived at Yongfu village and was not confident. This embroidery was the first big piece she had tried. Unfortunately, she had hit a wall everywhere and was very discouraged. Gu Yundong was already pondering which shop she should sell the embroidery to. During her time in the prefectural city, she had also visited a few shops. Just as she was thinking, Tongan returned. When he saw Shen Sitian sitting in the central room, he was slightly stunned and immediately lowered his head. When Shen Sitian saw him, she hurriedly stood up and said unnaturally, Yundong, I'll go back to my room first. You have something to discuss first, right? With that, she left in a hurry. When Gu Yundong looked up, she could only see her back. She frowned slightly. Why did she feel that Sitian was still hiding something from her? However, there were always secrets. Since she was unwilling to tell, Gu Yundong could not force her. Gu Yundong put away the embroidery work and looked at Tong En. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 729. Supporting elder sister in the future. Tong En had already sent out the red packets and also mentioned the increase in salary. Everyone was very happy, and Gu Yundong was relieved. After a while, Yunshu and Yuanji returned from school. When the two little guys heard that she was at home, they rushed in like a gust of wind without even putting down their school bags. Big sister, you're back. Cousin, how are uncle and the others? The two of them ran to her in an instant, then stopped in unison to avoid bumping into her. Gu Yundong squatted down and hugged each of them. Did you miss big sister? Yes. The two of them nodded obediently, their eyes sparkling. Gu Yundong wiped their sweat with a handkerchief. Then, she stood up and held their sweaty hands as they walked into the house. Big sister bought gifts for you in the prefectural city. Come and take a look. Yunshu immediately jumped up in joy. When he saw Gu Yundong's gift, his eyes lit up. Big sister is really the best big sister in history. She's already so beautiful and kind-hearted. It's hard to earn money by opening a shop in the prefectural city, but she still wants to buy gifts for us. Cousin Yuanji, we must be filial to big sister in the future and support her in her old age. Yuanji nodded. Gu Yundong. Support me in my old age? When I'm old, you won't be young anymore. Can you put away your filial piety? Why did she feel that after not seeing this little guy for a while, he was becoming more and more eloquent and even knew how to flatter others? What did Qin Wenjing teach him? Gu Yundong's gifts were all trinkets from the prefectural city. She had thought of buying them pen, ink, paper and inkstone, but decided against it. Studying was already so tiring, so they had to relax appropriately. Those toys were quite good for entertainment and relaxation. After the two of them put down their school bags and became less excited, Gu Yundong started chatting with them about the recent situation. The two little fellows seemed to be very interested in how Gu Dajiang entered Tianhai Academy. So Gu Yundong told them the entire process as if she was telling a story. The two of them were especially fascinated as they listened. Yunshu sighed and said, My father is really too smart. Cousin Yuanji, what if the two of us want to go to Tianhai Academy in the future and the mountain elder makes things difficult for us? Moreover, if he learns from my father's lesson, the difficulty of the questions will definitely be even greater. Maybe they'll ask you who you should save when your big sister, uncle, aunt, and Kiki fall into the water. Yunshu nodded heavily. Looks like he'll have to think about this from now on. After some thought, he shook his head. Chapter 730. A carriage came to Yongfu village. Forget it. Let's not care about him. Gu Yundong shook her head and saw Shao Qingyuan enter. He was here for dinner. Speaking of dinner, Gu Yundong suddenly thought of something. Gu Yundong called Yunshu and Yuanji, who were thinking about the problem. I heard that you've been going to the kitchen for the past 2 days to make your own food? Yunshu admitted it readily. Yes. Why did you go to the kitchen for no reason? Kiki's birthday is at the end of the month. Kiki likes to eat, so I thought that I would make something delicious for her. He was the older brother. Last time, he had an unforgettable birthday. It was Kiki's turn. He also wanted to give his sister a surprise birthday gift. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment before he laughed. That's a good idea, but you're still young. You have to be careful. When you're in the kitchen, you have to be watched by the adults. She didn't object to the children entering the kitchen. Not to mention Yunxu, even Kiki had to do what she could. However, the prerequisite was that there were adults present. Otherwise, if there was danger, others would be caught off guard. Yunxu nodded vigorously. I know. I cherish myself very much. All right, elder sister. What birthday gift did you prepare for Kiki? You have to inform me first so that we won't give her the same gifts. It won't be heavy. Gu Yundong rubbed his little head and led him to the dining room for dinner. Big sister knows how to make a lot of things. I'll just cook something else. Gu Yong's birthday was at the end of this month, and Gu Yundong's birthday was next month. The two sisters were very close. Madame Yang's birthday was at the end of the year. Only Gu Dajiang's was in the first half of the family. Gu Yundong had already thought of Kiki's gift. The three of them walked to the dining room. Shao Qingyuan had already taken out the big black basket in the corner. Yunxu and Yuanji were stunned when they saw Big Black. Big dog? Sister, why do we have a big dog? This is Big Black. Gu Yundong told them about Big Black. The way they looked at Big Black instantly changed. Big Black is a hero. We will definitely treat Big Black well in the future. Be good and eat first. With Gu Yundong around, the two little guys and Shao Qingyuan had a huge appetite. They only stopped after eating 2 big bowls. The next day was the day that Gu Yundong finally decided on the long-term workers. This time, she prepared to recruit 50 people. This way, the workshop would have 100 long-term workers. The workshop was also big enough to accommodate 100 people. There were still many applicants, even more than the last time. After all, there was a long time between the recruitments this time. Chapter 731. Shao Qingyuan, you have no principles. Gu Yundong stood at the door and waited for Tong Shui Tao to come over with the carriage. Hence, she immediately saw that person and immediately watched in surprise as he walked into Shao Qingyuan's courtyard. Shen Sitian, who was standing beside her, frowned slightly. Who is this? He even brought 2 guards with him. Don't tell me he's here to cause trouble for young Master Shao? Gu Yundong shook his head. No. She thought for a moment and said to Shen Sitian, tell Shui Tao that we won't be going to the county for the time being. I'll go to the Shao family's house to take a look. Shen Sitian nodded and Gu Yundong strode towards the Shao family. The 2 guards guarding the Shao family's door immediately stopped her. Gu Yundong rolled his eyes. Your young master is a guest at someone else's house, and you want to stop the master? The 2 guards looked at each other. You're the master? Gu Yundong nodded. Just as she was about to shout, she saw a Mao run out. Miss, come in quickly. Gu Yundong glared at the 2 guards and went in. As she walked in, she asked a Mao, why is young Master Dai looking for Brother Shao? He said that he's here as a guest. He even planned to hunt in the mountains with young Master. Hunting? Were all the young masters of the prefecture magistrate's family so free? They came all the way from the prefectural city to Yongfu village just to hunt in the mountains with Shao Qingyuan? Did she hear wrongly? As they spoke, the 2 of them stood outside the central room and heard faint voices coming from inside. Perhaps hearing the footsteps outside, there was no sound from inside. Then, Shao Qingyuan walked out. Why are you here? Didn't you say you were going to the county? I saw that young Master Dai was here, so I came over out of curiosity. Dai Wenhua naturally knew her. When he heard this, he smiled. Miss Gu, how have you been? My mother has been talking about it every day these past few days, hoping that Miss Gu will return to the prefectural city as soon as possible. I came here today without telling her. Otherwise, my mother might have come to look for Miss Gu. Young Master Dai, you must be joking. I heard that you're looking for Big Brother Shao to enter the deep mountains. That's right, Dai Wenhua replied. Previously, I heard from young Master Lu that Shao Qingyuan often enters the mountains. Not only can he fight tigers, but entering the mountains is like entering the back orchard to him. Therefore, I wanted to ask him to enter the mountains to take a look. Miss Gu wouldn't refuse, right? Gu Yundong touched her chin. Deep into the mountains? David's last sentence was just a joke. Unexpectedly, she suddenly fell silent as if she was really thinking. Dai Wenhuo's mouth tightened. You're not really refusing, are you? Gu Yundong looked up and suddenly smiled. Why wouldn't I let you go deep into the mountains? But I'll go with you. David was speechless. Shao Qingyuan frowned. You want to go? Yeah. Shao Qingyuan frowned even more, clearly not agreeing. Dai Wenhua said, Miss Gu, this isn't too good, right? This time, we won't be able to come out in 5 to 6 days. It's especially tiring. You're a delicate lady. Not only will it be dangerous, but you'll also suffer a lot. Most importantly, she would be a burden. They were not going on an outing. Gu Yundong looked at Shao Qingyuan with a smile. The latter surrendered in a second and exhaled slightly. All right, let's go together. Dai Wenhua jerked his head around to stare at him in astonishment. You agree just like that? Aren't you being too unprincipled? Dai Wenhuo's expression turned a little ugly. He wanted to say something, but Shao Qingyuan said, Well, set off at 5 tomorrow morning. I'm afraid she'll complain that she's tired before we even enter the mountains. Are we going to send her back then? Shao Qingyuan glanced at her. Yundong is not an ordinary woman. This situation won't happen. Of course I know that she's not an ordinary woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have opened such a big shop and made his parents trust her so much. But no matter how extraordinary she is, she's still a woman. There are many snakes, insects, rats, and ants in the mountains. She must be afraid, right? She's not afraid. Shao Qingyuan frowned. Yundong is skilled. Dai Wenhua could tell that in this person's eyes, his fiancée was a good person and would not have any problems. He felt that if he continued, Shao Qingyuan would probably be angry. But he still felt that he should not bring Gu Yundong along, so after thinking about it, he simply changed his words. All right, I know that Miss Gu is very awesome. It's not a problem for her to enter the deep mountains. But have you thought about it? There are 2 of us men, plus my 2 guards. There are 4 men and 1 woman. Isn't there a lot of inconveniences? Shao Qingyuan felt that it did make sense. Dai Wenhua waited for Shao Qingyuan to refuse, but he did not expect that after seeing Gu Yundong's excited expression and the carefully prepared backpack, Shao Qingyuan would immediately nod and say, It's very complete. This bag is so big. Let me carry it. David? Did he hear wrongly? What did Shao Qingyuan say just now? Did he really speak? Dai Wenhua took a deep breath and felt a pain in his heart. So Shao Qingyuan was such an unreliable person? The 2 people who were talking in the central room acted as if they did not see him at all and continued talking. No need. This backpack looks big, but it's actually very light. Do you see this strap? It's several layers, which can reduce the pressure. It's very easy. Why don't you give it a try? As she spoke, she closed the backpack, but her hand was still inside. She put some important things into her space and put the strap on Shao Qingyuan's shoulder. It's very light, right? Shao Qingyuan was surprised. It really didn't weigh much. It felt as light as a layer of skin. Chapter 734. Morning Temper. Gu Yundong took the backpack down. Why don't you carry this? I'll bring you a bag. Why don't you carry the bag and I'll carry the backpack? Shao Qingyuan was helpless. His bag was much heavier than her bag, which looked especially heavy and full. Naturally, he wouldn't switch with her. Only then was Gu Yundong satisfied. She carried her bag and turned to look at the constipated Dai Wenhua. Young Master Dai, do you have any more problems? Dai Wenhua looked at Shao Qingyuan and chuckled.
He gritted his teeth and said, "No problem." Then he turned around and led the two guards away. Gu Yundong looked at his back suspiciously and turned to ask Shao Qingyuan, "What's wrong with him?" "Maybe he woke up too early today," he replied without changing his expression. Gu Yundong was enlightened. So this guy had a morning temper? Shaking her head, Gu Yundong carried her backpack and left with Shao Qingyuan. The group quickly arrived at the foot of the mountain. It was still early, and the dew was very heavy. However, there were already many villagers working in the fields not far away. They did not say anything when they saw Shao Qingyuan and the others enter the mountain. Gu Yundong was dressed in men's clothes. They could not see who she was from afar. After they entered the mountain and there was no one around, Shao Qingyuan reached out and held Gu Yundong's hand as they walked forward. Dai Wenhua, who was following behind, snorted coldly. He had said that bringing a woman was a burden. Unexpectedly, even though Brother Shao looked smart and bold, he could not overcome the challenge of beauties and allowed his fiancée to fool around. No one spoke along the way. Gu Yundong was holding Shao Qingyuan's hand with one hand and leaning on her walking stick with the other. There was nothing much in the backpack on her back, but she walked easily. After half a day, the few of them had already entered the deep mountains. The weather gradually became hot, and the road became much more difficult to walk. Dai Wenhua looked at Gu Yundong, who was still walking casually, and could not help but be surprised. He did not expect her to remain silent until now. She did not even drink any water. On the other hand, although he had a strong physique and good skills, he did not have many chances to enter the mountain. At most, he would accompany his grandmother and mother to the temple on the outskirts of the city, where he had to climb the mountain, occasionally. However, there were steps on the mountain. Compared to the steep mountain path that was overgrown with grass, it was worlds apart. Although Dai Wenhua did not feel tired, it was indeed a little strenuous to walk. Moreover, he did not have any baggage on him. He was the young master, so he naturally had the two guards carrying his things. At noon, Shao Qingyuan saw a slightly flat spot near the pool and finally said, "Let's rest and eat before moving on." Dai Wenhua agreed, and the others naturally had no objections. Shao Qingyuan placed the bag on his back on the ground and found a rock for Gu Yundong to sit on. "I'll go hunt 2 pheasants. Wait for me here." "Okay." Dai Wenhua quickly said, "Let Dai Yi and Dai Zhong go." His 2 guards immediately stood up, but Shao Qingyuan said, "No need. I'm familiar with this place. I'll be back soon." With that, he carried his bow and arrow and ran out agilely. Dai Wenhua still gave Dai Yi a look, and the latter quickly followed. Gu Yundong looked at him with a faint smile. After half a day, she could tell that Dai Wenhua had a problem with her following them into the mountains. However, it didn't matter. She squatted down and opened her backpack. Then, she took out the small milk pot and washed it in the water. David was speechless. Chapter 735. Sharp Contrast Pot? She actually brought a pot? Did she really think that she was here for an outing? Dai Wenhua could not understand what was going on in this woman's mind. However, Gu Yundong had already started to look for rocks to build a small stove. Dai Wenhua frowned. At the same time, the other guard, Dai Zhong, felt that it was not good to let a girl do things, so he whispered, "Young master, I'll go nearby to pick up some firewood." "Okay, go ahead." Dai Zhong did not walk far either. He was within sight and could come over if anything happened. After Dai Zhong left, Dai Wenhua finally could not take it anymore and walked towards Gu Yundong. His tone was still rather gentle. "Miss Gu, it's not good to go hunting in the mountains with a pot, right? How can it not be good? It's convenient to cook." As she spoke, she took out a seasoning bottle from her backpack. Dai Wenhuo's mouth twitched. "We went into the mountains to hunt. We're not that particular about food." "You can't say that. Although we're on the mountain and there are limited conditions in all aspects, we have to give ourselves the best treatment we can, right? It won't delay things even if we bring the pot. We can eat some vegetables and rice occasionally after we eat too much roasted meat. This time, we'll be on the mountain for a few days." When Dai Wenhua heard about the rice, he wondered if she had brought the rice with her. Sure enough, Gu Yundong took out a small bag of rice.
It was not much, but she could still eat a few meals with some water and porridge. Dai Wenhua was suddenly at a loss for words. He felt a little irritated.
You sure know how to enjoy yourself. So young Master Dai came to the mountains to suffer?
Gu Yundong was surprised. In that case, I'll put less rice. Coincidentally, this pot isn't very big. It was enough for her and Shao Qingyuan to eat.
She was indeed as good as her word.
Dai Wenhua almost fell back in anger. Forget it. He did not want to waste any more time. He returned to the rock he was sitting on and took 2 sips of water from the water bag. He did not want to talk to Gu Yundong anymore. Not long after, Dai Zhong found a lot of dry firewood. Gu Yundong didn't use the firewood. She found a few large pieces of dry wood, lit a fire at the bottom, and covered it with a lid. She let the small milk pot boil. Then, she found 2 wild vegetables beside her. After washing them, she placed them on the oilcloth and cut them into pieces. When Shao Qingyuan and Dai Yi returned with 2 pheasants each, Gu Yundong had already prepared everything. There was even a fragrance coming out of the milk pot. Shao Qingyuan was a little surprised.
You're cooking porridge?
He hadn't looked carefully before and didn't notice that she had brought rice.